Content Clubhouse. This is the podcast where I bring on content creators, give a bit of an interview. I ask everybody the same questions to make sure we get a bit of an insight to their background and what's going on with them as to what got them to the point they are now. Then we talk about some kind of more personalized questions to each of the guests. And then finally, it's open discourse. And today's guest is MayorReynolds. Now, there's a lot to talk about with MayorReynolds. I foresee this being a really, really hearty talk and conversation because speaking to another person who has not only great vernacular, but also has such a wide depth and breadth into what they're interested in, I think it's only going to lead to a lot of things that are hopefully informative for not only me, but everybody watching. So Mayor, welcome. How are you today?
I'm good. How about you? How's your weekend?
I'm doing phenomenal. I actually just got back from we had a birthday party for a friend of mine. And we did a big brunch. I actually made bacon wrapped steak bites, which was phenomenal. I did a nice ribeye and a nice cast iron thing. And then I basically did all the cooking for that because I love to cook. And then after that, we did bowling for a bit. My fingers are still kind of sore, but we're doing okay though. We're doing okay. And I hope your weekend's been just the same.
Yeah, I pretty much had I gamed and I worked out this weekend. That's like pretty much all I did this weekend. So sometimes that's a good thing. Yeah.
That is a good weekend. People put too much pressure into like the whole social and like doing this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I feel like there needs to be less of that and there needs to be more of sometimes just buckling down and getting down to business. I was actually worried because, you know, for everyone watching and who's going to see this on YouTube as well, I almost wasn't able to make it because I have to fix this immediately and it's such an easy fix. I lost my script. I actually have an actual paper copy script of what I go through. That. And it was like the thing that I used back when this was called FlexCast, and now it's a thing. Now it's the same exact script it's not a script, it's more a guideline of like questions and ideas to ask about those questions. And I almost lost that. So I was able to find it and I think it's important so that we can make sure that things run smoothly. So Mayor, I guess we'll just jump right into this from the start. Question number one's a long one, and I think it really does kind of give a nice insight. I think it's a chronologically great place to start for talking about yourself as a person and what you do in content creation, which is going back. What was the origins and start of you gaming? What was the games to kind of get you into this all? What was the one that kind of when you got it was like, I feel something about this?
To get me into streaming or to get me into gaming?
We'll talk about streaming in a bit. Let's talk gaming for now.
All right. So, I mean, I was a gamer since I was 4 years old. I'm 35 now. So my story's interesting. I got a Nintendo Entertainment System when I was 4 years old because I got in an accident and long story.
Tell it. We're here for the long stories.
Shot myself in the eye with a bow and arrow when I was 4 years old.
What?
I shot a bow and arrow at the tire of a pickup truck, like a stationary pickup truck, and it hit the tire, and it came back and it hit me in the eye, and it
ricocheted.
And like as I got older, like I asked my physics professor in high school, like what were the chances of this, arcing that, like the force that was necessary for it to do that, and like so anyway, I lost the vision in my right eye, and I was like kind of like gonna be stuck inside for a while as I was on my road to recovery as a 4-year-old kid who just,
Oh my
and,
God.
The way I kept myself, the way my parents, I guess, made sure that I could stay buckled down and not, cause complete chaos was to buy me an NES. And some of the first games that
NES,
I remember playing, like, I played so many. The original Zelda, Mega Man, Battletoads, Gauntlet. Back in those days.
I remember the Battletoads memes. They were so
that game was so hard. That was Dark Souls before Dark Souls.
Man, a lot of those old games were very difficult. And I don't know, are you someone with siblings?
Yes. At the time I had a younger sister, like 2 years younger than me.
Yeah. I remember how many times those games back then there wasn't cheat codes. You had to get like a book from like a Blockbuster or something, because if you didn't have that, you were fucked. And there were so many times where like, and I think about it now, where like I just wasn't smart enough to really understand how to get past certain checkpoints. And usually you'd pass the controller to your older brother. But I wonder now, like, if I went back and played those, would I have the cognitive understanding to beat these puzzles, or was I actually at the same level and it was just that hard? And I think it was that hard.
Some of it you might find that it's even harder, because nowadays we're so accustomed to you know the attention spans we have these days. Like back then, it was like I had this game and it's like the only game you had, pretty much. You know what I mean? Like, so you just played it and you played it and you played it and you played it. Nowadays, it's like, if I get stuck in this game for 20 minutes, I'm just gonna go back to Apex or go back to Valorant or whatever. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah, I do.
You go back and you play those old puzzles and stuff, or like you get stuck on that boss and it's just like, I'm out. Like I can't do it anymore. These games really were insanely hard.
No, I think they were, because I think a lot of them, because back then there weren't so many tricky mechanics that they could code in. So I think a lot of it was very much like, just like sometimes it would even be something as simple as a difficult jump. And that would take you out. That was like an Achilles stab. Like, you're like, oh God, I can't. This jump just needs you to you have to time it perfectly, and it was impossible. And
the Mega Man games, I died just to jump so often. Just what are you gonna do?
I feel that. So what was the first game that you think you were like this is like the game that maybe it's not the best in general, but maybe the one that you were like, this is the game that really has the biggest core memory of me playing it, and like I played it maybe when I needed to play it.
I would say like my biggest, like my gaming DNA, or like what I really like cut my teeth on, like my coming to age game, so to speak, as I started to become like, you know, more mature and an adult, was probably the original Halo, and then Halo 2 right behind it. That's where I kind of bred my like competitive spirit and really started to get into the nitty-gritty of like, you know, competitive gaming and like learning maps in and out and weapons and, you know, all that crazy stuff was those first two Halo games. I mean, I gamed for a long time up until then, but those were the first two games that I would say that I like. That, and then World of Warcraft thereafter, probably like the most like had the most effect on me as a gamer in the long run.
I think it was difficult back then, because you mentioned the first few Halos, and that's kind of when online gaming was like still in its you had to be very privileged to play an online game. You couldn't just get a console and play online. You had to kind of do some workarounds to get it like match made and everything else, if you didn't have a LAN place nearby, of course.
Yeah.
The LAN places were not prevalent by me, so I had no chance of that.
Not me either. I live in upstate New York, as you do.
Absolutely.
You know, southern tier, I guess. Some people always argue whether it's upstate or not, but
their beer is the best, by the way. Southern Tier. Their beer, they have the absolute best beer. I know it's out of topic. Southern Tier is a brewery by us that's unfucking believable. It's so great. But continue. I'm sorry.
I've got a lot of friends who are into breweries around here.
Yeah.
So
I'll have to. We're not far, so I'll have to. That'll be a vlog one day.
There you go. That's our next piece of collab content.
There it is.
I don't drink hardly at all, but that'll be part of the fun of it.
We'll make it work.
Yeah. I just choose not to.
Gotcha. So you didn't have any LAN sites or anything, so you kind of just, but you had like a good enough situation at home that you were able to get to online and do it all.
We were pretty young when Halo CE came out. I think it was 2001, so I would have been 14. So we were lucky enough to have some friends who were
I would have been 5.
A little bit older than us. And you know, they had the LAN. You had to buy like cables and all sorts of crap, you know, multiple TVs, hook them all up. We would all like put our Xboxes in our backpacks and walk like a mile or 2 miles to like somebody else's house and hook them all up, and it was amazing at the time. It seemed like It was so cutting edge, you know.
So you would have been the big brother then. You would have been the one who was helping people then. Yeah, because like I said,
I didn't have the LAN thing, but
I'd have been 5 at the time. Well, you guys all bringing your consoles to a place. You know, I think that kind of still resonates, that same feeling, because that era of bringing your consoles to a place lasted for a very long time. Even in my early teen years, I was bringing a console somewhere because that's just what you did.
You know, kids these days, I hate to sound so old, but they don't know the stuff that we went through, like doing stuff like that. And then,
God, yeah.
I remember like the first there's a game called Resident Evil Outbreak, which wasn't a big success, but it was on the PlayStation 2, and it was an online multiplayer Resident Evil game, which was a genius idea and way ahead of its time. But depending on if you had a hard drive for your PlayStation 2 or not, it either loaded in like 15 seconds or it loaded in like literally like 15 minutes. So like if you were one of those poor people like me who didn't have like a hard drive for your PS2 because I was like 15 and couldn't afford one yet and whatever, you would load in and it would literally take like minutes to load into the match.
Oh my
and then
God.
like, some of your teammates would be like halfway through the level already and you're like trying to like catch up. You've got no supplies. By the time you catch up, they've got like, you know, like assault rifles and shotguns and health, and you're there like with your starting knife or whatever, just like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, no, I remember, I think my first online experience ever was when I used to go to this church that had computers there in their computer room that were absolutely terrible computers, obviously. But there used to be that Flash game where you would have a stick figure who threw grenades to like to the other side of the map.
I remember that.
And you were able to play against people online, and it was very like, I mean, it took like 10 minutes to load into a game, and the game was so choppy, but it was so simple. But I think that was my first ever online experience into like what actual online gaming was, because again, for a very long time, it was a privileged thing. It was something that like you had to have internet at home, you had to have like everything. If you didn't have even the smallest amenities, then there was zero chance. And that's considering you have a console and then the things to adapt it to be able to do that, because it was very difficult back then to just make a console have that kind of online capability.
Yeah, I mean, Halo 2 was really the first game that Halo 2 was really responsible for a lot of things. Xbox Live success, matchmaking. Up until that point, we didn't have any of those things. Like, I remember playing demos like for like entire summers of like early online games, like Battlefield 1942 as a kid. Like, I don't know what year that came out, but like I had like the demo of Battlefield 1942. So it was one map. That's all. That's it. It was Wake Island, which is ironically like the best Battlefield map of all time. Yeah. That was like what I had. I played it for like a whole summer, like one map of Battlefield 1942 online, and it was amazing.
It's not too crazy to say
64
that.
players online, like, you know, like,
yeah.
That was
it's not too crazy to say that, because Warzone had one map for a very long time, and it was enough. I mean, sometimes if you just hit it right the first time, that's all you need is just that.
That's true. That's true.
That's very, very funny. So another subcategory of question number one would be, and I think this is important to kind of get a feel for the person specifically, but what do you think would draw you to a game? Like, what is the thing that makes a game stand out to you more than other games? Because right now we live in a world where releases are weekly of bangers, like really good games, like games that
this
are like
month is really rough with that.
Amazing.
Like, really,
I mean, Elden Ring, Lost Ark catching its wind. You have, you know, there's phenomenal. Pokemon just announced a brand new game coming out very soon. So of all these different titles, you know, what is something that draws you to like a title specifically?
It depends on the genre of game, but for me, it's kind of like stylistically, it's kind of like the flavor. So like, I get hooked by the core gameplay, but to get me to be drawn to it, it's definitely like the violence, the speed, and the momentum of it. You know, like when I see it.
Shout out Doc, we love Doc here.
Like does that fantasy match like what I like? I tend to like. I'm not an edgelord, but I tend to, you know, at this stage of my life, I don't play a lot of like, you know, raid E for everyone type games. You know, I tend to play, you know, shooters, MOBAs, MMOs. I don't know. There's just something about it, because like I was having a discussion with somebody the other day about how like for some reason like fantasy to me is like really hit or miss. So like when I like Game of Thrones, I like A Song of Ice and Fire, I like The Witcher. When I look at the Lord of the Rings, which, sorry guys, some people are gonna hate me for this, I'm like, this is boring. Like I have no interest in this, and I don't know why. Though I really don't even know why.
Well, I think the answer to that question is the fact that there are some people who are able to execute an idea better than others. And Lord of the Rings was great for the time that it was, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's influential to everything that came after.
Almost now in the category of like something to look back upon, because it had its reign, but things are progressing so fast now that some games, I mean, you have The Last of Us, which is it's a movie in itself. It's a cinematic experience that you're able to play through, and if you're able to accomplish that in a game, the cinema has to match that. And I think that there are certain titles who have tried it and maybe we're kind of not there, but then you have those ones like The Witcher and Game of Thrones that were able to really get that sense of a large area where there are intermingling stories, and it's believable because there's not many people in each area. It's almost like you'd expect them to clash at some point, and I think that's right. I think that's a good take on everything.
It blows my mind, by the way, that it's like I feels like I just played The Last of Us for the first time, and I played it when it first came out.
Yeah,
but to me, that's one of those games that's like just truly amazing. Like that's like a top 10 game of all time, in my mind. And like they're remaking it already. And I'm like, wait,
did they announce that? I didn't hear about that.
It's been leaked, like, and confirmed by like sources like numerous times that it's coming out within the next year. But that just seems like, and I know it's at least 10 years now, I think, but it seems to me still, because it was so fresh and so amazing at the time, it still seems new. Like, but it's not.
Well, it's difficult because sometimes a narrative can absolutely wipe away the other work. You know, you have certain games that are so graphically pleasing and have so much going on in them, but don't have enough core substance and relatability that you almost feel nothing towards the game. They're amazing games, but you almost don't care. And then you have the other side of it where there are games that have such great fundamentals and story that they could have shitty graphics, and you're just going to look past it. You're just going to enjoy the game because, you know, what's that game right now? It's the vampire game that is killing.
Oh, Vampire Survivors.
It's killing. And you look at the game and you're like, this should have came out 30 years ago. Like, this is a very simple game, but it's unbelievably smashing right now. The numbers are projected to still be phenomenal. And I think that's a testament to exactly what you're saying, that sometimes it's more about the content of a game than kind of just putting something out there that's new. The Last of Us being a great example, because it's old now, technically. Yeah. But it has so much weight, replayability, interest, and also just something that draws you to it, that gives it that legacy status, something that's above and beyond.
And I think indie games in particular, I'm a big indie game guy. Like I watch like so many trailers for indie games, and I'm like always tweeting about indie games and stuff, because there's so many. Vampire Survivors is a great example. Like these really small teams that take something like really, you know, it's basically they looked at Castlevania and they're like, let's use this style, and then we're gonna make this crazy, like almost like bullet hell style game, but we're gonna bring in like modern day, like rogue-like elements to it, and and we're gonna make it $3. And it just presses all the right buttons, you know, like just whatever that it's like making a smoothie, you know, like, well, we're gonna put in a little bit of this, and we're gonna put it out, and it's gonna be $3, and it's freaking. You can play it for 20 minutes and never play it again, and still get your money's worth and love it.
I think it's one of those situations as well too, where it's like right time, right place, because there could be a million of those games that exist right now, and you never hear about them. But sometimes those games shine right through and they hit. And I hate to say such a meme, but Among Us is one of those where graphically, nothing. But the content, like the sustenance of it, right place, right time, was able to really kind of just like flourish. And it absolutely had its peak and its fall. I don't think that it's necessarily dead, but it did what it needed to do at the time.
Yeah, I mean, and this is super clever. Among Us was super clever and genius, because really when you think about it, all it is like, it's almost like a modern, simplistic take on the board game, like Clue. You know, just like trying to figure out, oh, it was Colonel Mustard with the candlestick. You know, like that kind of thing. It's just a video game take on it,
adaptation, if you will.
And I often find that indie developers can take a lot more risks, because you know they don't have like as much. You know, they don't have $100 million budget. Where when the game fails, it's like, oh my god, we just lost $100 million. Like it's like, well, I'm making this game by myself. If I can pay myself to do it and release it. We did good enough. And then streamers often play a big part in blowing up those games too. Like, you know, if XQC with 80,000 viewers plays some game that nobody's ever heard of, and then everybody's playing it all of a sudden.
If half of his viewers, even a quarter of the viewers, play at 80,000, 20,000 people, and then they share that interest and enjoyment of it with anyone else, that's now that 20,000 becomes like 500,000 immediately.
Exponential.
And it's incredible to see how quickly that stuff happens. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
So one more subset of question one before we move on to number two would be, if you could design just like unlimited budget, unlimited team, if you could design the game that you would play forever, like the one that you were like, this is the game that I think I would honestly just like love forever. What do you think you would want in a game? What do you think that would be?
Oh man, when I was in high school, I took computer programming for 4 semesters or whatever, like four subsequent classes. And at first, it's like, that's what I'm gonna do. It's like I'm gonna be a game developer, And I did enjoy it, but like I was not good at coding at all. Like I had friends who were like genuinely talented at it, and I was like, I was sitting next to them and watching what they were doing, and I was just like, man, like I suck. Like I am not good at this. Like I'm trying really hard, like, and it was like what I loved. Like I've been playing video games since I was 4.
Yeah.
I was like, I am not good at this. Like I gotta figure something else out here. And I started a website when I was 14, like reporting video game news that got pretty big, but that's another story.
We'll come back to that. Listen, if you have another stories, I'm writing it down because I want to come back to those.
Them. Yeah. I've got plenty of stories. We'll be here all night. So I thought that was kind of my angle at the time. Was like, well, I'm going to do video game news when I was 14. But if I had to design a game like right now,
one that you'd play forever, just one that you would like be like, this is it.
And if I didn't have to worry about like other people playing it and like the success thereof.
No, because the thing is, if you enjoy a game enough, like there's going to be a market because you're not the only person in the world that's going to enjoy this game. It's a game that if you could make it, could be a roguelike, an FPS, could be anything. It's a game that you can just spin to be your perfect game.
I would probably, obviously getting there would be extremely difficult, but I would probably make some type of like arena shooter. Like what comes to mind to me is like some blend of like there's just something like that I like a Quake, like a Gears of War, like a Splitgate, with some twists, like I don't know. I'm not designing a game at the moment. I'm not a genius here. Yeah. I don't have them right at the top, but something like that you can get into and get out of. And I've actually said this multiple times. I still think this is like a $1 billion idea that nobody's really taken advantage of. Is if you took, what was that mode in last Call of Duty Modern Warfare? Was it Gunfight? I think they called it Gunfight.
Yes, Gunfight was 2v2. Amazing. Yeah, they have that in Apex now too.
You took Arena, yeah. If you took a game and you made it only like basically gunfight, so the entire game is just 2v2, super quick. And you get in and out of matches in like 1 to 2 minutes, and like the matchmaking times are like nothing. Like
and there's a rank,
8 seconds. But you really fully fledged that concept out. Yeah, like add like ranked stuff, add leaderboards, just so like you could literally play it for 5 minutes and then be done with it. Like and then get on again, later and play it for 5 minutes and be done with it. Like pick up and play that quick. Play a couple matches in 5 minutes. I think that's $1 billion idea.
I think
don't mess around with bigger scale. Don't mess around with battle royale. Don't mess around with
just keep it in that box.
Just that. Yes.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I think that games like that often suffer from metas too much because I think that metas are the thing that makes a game like that die quicker. Because when you have a game like that, people are gonna be like, oh, just use the shotgun in the gunfight because it's way easier. You're quicker. You get your wins, and like that's how they rank up.
Or the sniper rifle or whatever.
Yeah, it's like it'll change so quickly. So I think that a game like that would need balance. But I love that kind of easy replayable content where it's like person versus person, best man wins. No, what are those called? Consolation prizes. No anything. Just win or lose. Like that's it. And
if you nail that, all the rest falls into place. If your player just feels that sense of gratification in that, like Bungie used to have this concept they called 30 seconds of fun when they were making the old Halo games.
Yeah.
And that was it. That if your game was just constantly just 30 seconds of fun, like every little battle in a Halo game or whatever, if that is the core of that is good, everything else will fall into place.
Well, you see that with a lot of games too. Like a lot of games who have that how do you word it? That like structure of that Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on what I was just trying to say. I'm so sorry. This does happen. It's ADHD is sometimes you think too quick. You like start talking before the thought's even finished.
Yeah, I mean Kanye has that problem. You know, he has too many thoughts in his head. So I understand.
I don't know if I'm putting myself on that category yet, but no, there's something to it. No, basically all I was trying to get at is that a lot of games that follow that formula end up being very well, and that's their most successful content. World of Warcraft was one of them with their arenas. Of all the things that World of Warcraft put out there, arenas was their most successful content. Like whenever they did those things, that was the best because it was a thing where you get in, person fights person, winner wins. That's it.
Yeah.
Best man out. Gears of War, same thing. Lots of games have done that, but I feel like no game has made that their core idea. So that's you're probably right in the sense that there's some money to that, but
strip it down. Yeah, like that's the thing. Like when you think of trying to compete with, okay, I'm gonna make a battle royale. Okay, I'm trying to compete with Apex. I'm trying to compete with Fortnite. I'm trying to compete with Warzone. Like, is that actually what you want to do? I want to be like, no, I want small scale, super accessible, no strings attached. You can, like I said, play it for 5 minutes, play it for 5 hours. But,
it's hard because a lot of companies try to copy those kinds of regimes. And in a lot of different kinds of ways of content creation, copy and paste works. But with games, it sometimes just doesn't. Sometimes it falls very flat. I mean, you have the whole battle royale thing, and then you have a game like, what is it, Spellgate? Or was it
Spellbreak?
Spellbreak, yes. Where, same thing, great battle royale concept, but it's just like they just took the systems of every other game and just tried to make a very similar game, but with a slightly different twist. And I feel like if they had just taken the combat of the spell power and turned that in a different direction from battle royale, but to anything else, it would have been a great game because it felt well.
I think that was a great game. It struggled, and I think that game had a problem that a lot of games have, and it's not even really a problem that we should have, but we do have it. And it's not a problem with the game so much as the players, like us. So like a lot of games that have like high skill ceilings, they don't attract an audience anymore because it's so hard to play. Like a Quake, right? Like like the skill ceiling in Quake is insanely high.
God,
like if you're a new player, if you tell some some 12-year-old kid, who's been playing Fortnite and been playing Warzone, like, hey, come play this new game, or come play Quake, and they jump in and they see those people bunny hopping and moving like 1,000 miles per hour across the map and just like one-shot headshotting them left and right and insta-giving them, they're gonna be like, this is dumb. And a lot of games that have that high skill ceiling, which is what you want to be able to, it's super cool, it's amazing to see players do what they do in those games, but it makes it really hard for new and casual players to jump in and get any feet underneath them.
I feel like that's where the multifaceted parts of those gaming organizations come into, because you have a game like very difficult games where people see that stuff and they don't want to jump in immediately, but then you have a game like Guns the Duel, which is incredibly high skill ceiling.
What'd you call it?
Is that what it's called? Guns the Duel? I think it's called Guns.
I haven't heard of it, so
I might be misquoting it. There's a game, and it's a very small indie type game that's very old, and it's a keyboard and mouse game with very low ping, very low frame rate, or high frame rate, but very low ping. And the whole point of the game is it's like this you see people play, and it's like they're playing Guitar Hero. They're smacking their keyboard, they're smashing, they're doing everything because they're jumping and hop skipping, and it has a very high skill gap that most people would not want to jump into. But it had a small TikTok spree of paid advertisements that made the game actually surge immensely, and just people who are interested in wanting to get into something complex. And I feel like advertising now is going to be the thing that bridges the gap between games that are difficult but also want to reach a larger audience, because there's so many games that are difficult but they pride themselves in almost being mysterious about their content, to say like, oh, you'll have to just play and figure it out for yourself, because most people are going to be like, no, I won't play it. I just won't play it,
Right.
If you make it like play and figure it out and here's somebody doing it, then it's like, oh, like, here's someone who I know, a content creator doing it, and it actually looks kind of funner.
I mean, it's such, like you said earlier, like there's so much involved that's like right place at the right time, because like there was so many people, myself included, and a representative from Sony recently came out and said this too, that when he played Demon's Souls, like it's just right place at right time. Like those Souls games, like if you just try to jump in and you're just getting destroyed, until you understand it and then it clicks and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. It's so easy to just like wow, this game is so ridiculously hard. It's so unfair. I don't even want to play this. I'm never going to play it.
That's how
it's
I felt.
trash. But like, because so many people, like, eventually, you know, people stuck with it. And so many people found like, wow, there's like kind of like an art form to this. Like, I get it now. Like, somehow it was in the right place at the right time. And now it's like, you know, From Software is huge. But it was a huge risk. It just as easily could have just been like, discarded.
And I think they're getting that now, because now they have a phenomenal game with Elden Ring, but they're advertising ideas for it. The way that they're putting that out there, like the post that they did, the one that stood out to me the most was the like infinity list of 10 out of 10s from all these different companies. And it's like they understand now that putting a game out there to give it that light is very important, because now content creators are flooding to it and making content off of it, and it's cyclical. It's something that's going to, people are going to make content, which brings people in who are going to make content, which brings people in who are going to make content, and it's now starting to get its legs. And it's had its legs, it had its legacy, but this game I think has shattered so many just expectations that people have had for this game, that I think it's now going just absolutely crazy. And I'm also realizing now that we are really good at just talking about games and ideas. So I want to pull this back to the interview portion of this, because this is supposed to be also about you as a content creator, to help everybody, to help, you know, just get the idea out of what got you to where you are now. So I'd like to segue into question 2. It's a very jarring segue, but we're going to segue into question 2, which is just in general, what made you press go live for the first time?
I was in a weird place. So when I first heard about Twitch, I was kind of like, and now I've been a Twitch streamer for like over 3 years, so it sounds weird to say. When I first heard about Twitch, I was like, wait, there's all these people just watching other people play games? Like, that's stupid. Like, that was literally my first reaction. I was like, I want to play the games myself. I love playing games. Like, why would I watch other people play? And then, like, I got thinking about it, and I was like, but wait, like, we've always done that. Like, with your siblings, you'll sit there, or your friends, you watch them and play games. Or you go to the arcade, and you're watching that guy who's really good at Street Fighter or whatever, like, you know, destroy everybody else. So, yeah, I started watching it a little bit, and I discovered some streamers myself, you know, my all-time favorite being Doc, you know, like, I'm like, wow, there really is a... You know, there's like production to this. There's like a show to this. Like, there's like, you know, a lot to this. It's not just, you know, it's not just people watching other people play games, you know. And then, yeah, that's just what did it for me. I guess in the beginning, it was part of it. I think was I've always had this thing about, I think that gamers, and it has gotten better, I think, in the last few years, but it's gotten better and it's gotten worse in some ways. Gamers have been represented really poorly to the mainstream, especially for a long time. I mean, I grew up in the days where, like, you know, Grand Theft Auto was questioned for, you know, corrupting the youth.
I remember that.
You know, I grew up with, like, when you went to school, you weren't sure if you, like, who you could tell that you were a gamer to, because you, like, it wasn't cool. Oh my god, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
we'll talk more about that later, but that's something that actually is crazy.
Yeah. Like, when you found out somebody else was a gamer, you guys suddenly had this, like, oh my god, like, we could talk about this game, you know, like.
Same with anime for those people. I was part of that with anime, but that one was like very scary because, you know, but sorry, continue.
No, it's all good. So, like, you know, I was a mayor at the time when I was actually in office the first time I ever went live. And that's kind of where I was coming from. It's like, I think I have something different to offer to people. Like, yes, I'm still playing the same games, but, like, I'm not going to be, like, I don't know, like the type of discussions that especially when I first started out, I was like, you know, we're gonna be having different discussions in my channel, not really even planned by me, because like every creator, like I started just the same as everybody else. You know, it was awkward at first, and I didn't know how to talk to people, you know, on camera, like through a stream at least. I had been on TV and done interviews and stuff, but I had to learn that stuff just like everybody else, like how to stream, you know.
Absolutely.
But that's kind of where I came from. Was like, I want to represent gamers a little differently than we had traditionally been, like, portrayed, you know. And I'm not saying I have exclusive rights to that, but that's kind of where I was coming from. Is like, I want to be something different than Ninja, like that, like, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with him, although I do think there's things wrong with him, but that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
now.
no, I get that.
Like I don't want to be that, just like, you know what I mean.
I get what you're saying. It's funny you say that, because I was actually going to reference Ninja as being somebody who I think was a pioneer for streaming.
Oh, absolutely.
I think Ninja, what he did, and he had a few lucky segments back to back. I mean, that guy rolled D20s nonstop for like a year straight. I mean, it was incredible to see him go from what he was to Drake to sponsorships to just the most, like, it was incredible to see his absolute rise to success.
No doubt, he's in the Hall of Fame.
But I absolutely agree with you. I think that there is this stigma of people being gamers and now streamers looking at it almost as if it's like this thing to be dismissive of, or it's like a small passion project. And I think that it deserves a bit more credibility towards it, because it takes work and it takes skill. Not everyone can press go live. That's their right. But it doesn't mean that they're going to do it in a way that anyone needs to watch. And you see that very often, because you'll see a lot of pity posts very often about people saying, oh, nobody watches my stream, or like, I've really been trying. And it's like, if you get to the point of posting that, take one step back and think, why? Like, why do people not care about my content? And chances are it's because you're lacking in certain aspects that other people are doing. So I think you make a great point in saying that you wanted to represent everything from a completely different perspective. And I think that your perspective is completely different. I want to talk more about that, when we get to the open segment, the politics and how that all involved in gaming. But I'm sure that there's a sense of wanting to stand up for something that that led you to both politics and also content creation.
Oh yeah. I mean, I guess there's two stories here and one story. I mean, one of the reasons I ran for mayor originally, the really only reason I ever ran for office was because I felt like I had something the first time I ran for office, I was 21 years old. And, I was coming from that same mindset then. Is like, there's not a lot of people, like me, 21-year-old kids, running for office in rural areas, like that's where I was coming. Not, gamer, nerd, like not a lot of us in office. That was one of the reasons I ran for office too. And it's the same thing streaming is like, well, there's not a lot of people who are, streaming and playing video games who are trying to have more like mature discussions with people and trying to urge people to like, make good choices and be activists. And I don't mean activists as in just like making posts on forums or on Twitter, but being actually engaged with a community, like a real, like your neighbors, like that type of thing, and striving to achieve your own goals and that kind of thing.
Which gaming online is kind of becoming a bit more. People, I feel like I have more close relationships with people online than anyone in real life in some ways, because there's certain people who you just meet. I think it's because a lot of the layers are peeled back. There's a lot less bullshit. If you don't like someone off the bat, then you're just not going to like them. When you're in person, sometimes you have to deal with people. But online, it's like, okay, I'm just done with you. Block, whatever you have to do.
See ya.
But
Peace
you can
out.
also put out all your weird stuff, and people kind of grab it like fish reels, and like, I also like this obscure random thing that. And I think that's really cool about the content creation and dragging people into your community. So, for people who haven't ever streamed and people who might be looking into it, what did your first few streams look like? Like, what, like, were they like less resolution? Were they things that you maybe like? Videos and clips.
I probably do somewhere. So, I used to, for like at least the first year of my streams, I wore shirts and ties at like almost every single stream. Like really? I wore like. Oh yeah, I wore a suit at times. Like I wore like, because I was very, especially at that time, like I was like, I guess both trying to present myself well, but also like in the mindset of like I kind of like I'm a character. You know, it is like branding.
Yeah, like
basically. Like branding. Yeah, and not that I was playing a character, but I was like, well, I'm the mayor. I'm gonna try to look like a mayor, and then I'm no longer a mayor, but. But my first few streams, I remember, horrible dropped frames. I think one of my first streams, the whole screen was just like literally just a garbled mess. You couldn't see anything. And I was like, all right, I need to upgrade everything in my computer, like now. And I did. I spent like way too much money. I was like, if I'm going to do this is what I got to do. Just you know how it is. Like, you got to have the tech or it doesn't work.
Absolutely. I did a Thanos gauntlet of upgrades. I had pictured it like a Thanos gauntlet because I was also into the comic books and whatnot, where mic was one, an actual camera was one, multiple monitors was one, proper lighting was one, and then proper just like accessories like Stream Deck, like, you know, all the good paraphernalia that you'd have with what you'd have. And it was like assembling that stuff to make the better content was so important to me to chase after. And when I was able to check off each one of those goals and start to see my quality upgrade and upgrade and upgrade, it just felt better. So I know exactly what you mean. And also in that process, I feel like you find yourself. You find like,
oh, for sure.
Like, all right, this is the actual content I want to put out. Because sometimes certain things work, but it's not what you care about. Just because something's working doesn't mean it's what you want to put out there. It just happens to be what's working right then and there. I could be like any other TikToker and just do a silly dance for like 100,000 views per day, but is that what I want to be known for?
It's funny that you said that because I do like 99% of my TikToks are like, I do like at the beginning of every stream, I do like a gaming news segment where I report and I discuss gaming news. It takes like anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, depending on what's going on. Because sometimes I do deep dives. Sometimes it's just like, let's watch this trailer and let's see how it looks. And I make TikToks of it. And somebody said to me, he's like, the same reason that your TikTok is really unique and awesome, and I love it, is because you're doing something different than everybody else on TikTok. And the same reason it's hard for you to get followers and get it growing on TikTok is because you're doing something unique and different than everybody else is on TikTok. But I really believe that if I'm going to offer value and actually build and grow, that I do need to do something unique. And eventually that will pay off, you know, because if I'm just doing stupid dancing and stuff, sorry, dancers, it's fine. You go ahead and do it.
There's nothing wrong to it. Get it how you get it.
I'm not doing anything different, nor am I talented in that regard. Like, I can't offer anything. But what I can offer is an awful lot of gaming knowledge, and I stay up on gaming news, and like I report stuff that people, you know, even though it's not me making the news, I'm bringing it to their attention, and that's I think what a lot of people have ended up knowing me for.
It's one of those things that's hard because it's a large niche. A lot of people are interested in putting it out there, so it's how you do it, and I think you do it in a great way where it's very sudden, but also very open. It's not very subjective. You're really giving a lot of people the due diligence that they deserve, companies and developers that, you know, likewise, but also just making sure that it's present as quickly as possible, and I think you do a good job of making sure you keep up on that. And I think that's something that can't be overlooked at all.
Yeah, I mean, with news, it's any type of news, not just gaming news. It's literally, you do it in the moment or you're behind. So there's times where, like, if you wait like an hour, you like might as well not even do it at all. Like, you've already missed the moment. You know, move on to whatever story is next. It's disposable in that regard, but you know,
it also hits.
It's a never-ending stream of content too.
Yeah. Speaking of the streams, because, you know, I asked you originally what got you into streaming. You know, if you had like infinite budget, something that was just, you could design a room the way you would design it, do you think that anything would change with your streams, or do you think that you would kind of keep the exact same mantra you have right now?
It's funny that you say that because like my personal weakness as a streamer is definitely like on the production side. So like I'm very good, I like to think, at least at keeping compelling conversation going and, you know, talking with my chat and doing all of that type of stuff. I feel like I've really got as far as like, you know, I hate to keep bringing him up, but somebody like Doc, like that, he's a master of production. As much as you want. He is. His production is unbelievable. And but it's you have to accept as well too, and I think most people do, that it's not accomplishable for the average man. You have to have such a budget put away for something like that. Thousands of dollars on graphics and art on like a monthly basis.
It's amazing, but it's impossible.
It's funny because my wife and I are probably going to move in like the next year and a half, and we're going to buy a new house. And I've been thinking about that, like, okay, like I might get like basically like my dream stream room. What do I want in it? You know? Yeah. And I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm trying to figure that out. And I definitely want to add like more camera angles and stuff like that, like more cameras. Because in my current streaming setup, right now I only have one camera angle because of a limitation of like the logistics of the room. Yeah. So I mean, if I had unlimited budget, I mean, just realistically, right now the thing I'm trying to get is I want to get a better graphics card. I want to get like a 3080.
Okay.
I want to buy like one more light probably. At least like one more. I'm probably thinking of getting like an Elgato key light like, from the other side here.
Have you thought
Just
about
more
like
space,
DSLR and
more
things like
space
that
to do
stuff
more
too?
stuff. Yeah, definitely. If I added more cameras, I think I would like one of them to be a DSLR, and then I could use that for other things too.
Yeah, that was
other types of content.
That was one of those pieces in my Thanos gauntlet that I absolutely hated because I use a lot of green screen. You've seen the push-up gym, you've seen those kinds of things. It's very difficult because even with top of the line webcams, there's still so much noise around myself whenever I interact with green screens unless I have an insurmountable amount of lighting. And it just makes it so tough because sometimes I just want to be able to just flip a switch, and OBS is great. Their green screen can chroma key out all of these shadows and everything in such a great way, but that's also because I have a Sony a6000. If I didn't, with my old webcam, there were so many moments where I'd lift my arms and you just saw just like a monstrous mess down here of whatever. Just colors that were so smudged. So I get what you mean about. Yeah.
There's like nothing in between too. With cameras and webcams, it's like from 0 to 100. It's
You're
like
right.
you have like a webcam or you have like a $2,000 camera. Like there's like nothing in between.
Absolutely nothing. No, it's impossible. It's impossible. And I think that it's good because you're somebody who, you know, obviously I have the DSLR, I have like the you know, XLR microphone setup and everything else like that. But you're creating content that is equal, if not, I would say above my content in the sense that the quality over the quality of the content over the quality of the graphics and everything. I think that's so important because the sustenance that you're putting into what you do is so much more than somebody just playing games in a lot of way.
Yeah, and
there's a lot of work that goes into it. It has to be.
Like you and I, I mean, I don't mean to speak for you, but I get the sense that like we're perfectionists. Like if we're gonna do something, we got to be all in. You know, like we can't do it with like a 540p type thing. You know, we got to be, but there is something to be said. Like there's a guy on YouTube, I think his name's Gail Level. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but he does like stream advice, and he's got a pretty good following. And he was saying that like nobody knew for like the longest time that his streams were in 540p because he just worked really hard to make everything work. And he doesn't really stream games. He does like just chatting streams, and it's his personality. He's super bubbly and he chats with people and blah 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 blah. And because he lives in a place where his internet really sucks and his bit rate is really low.
That sucks,
and like all these things. So instead of just going crazy and buying, $10,000 worth of equipment, he made it work, and he found content that kind of like worked for him. It wasn't just him playing games. He was the content. He came up with compelling stuff and it worked. So there's something to be said for that too.
Making the best of what you get, and I think that a lot of people have done that and pioneered that. I mean, Moist Critical, somebody everybody knows, is still using, Apple headphones with just his PC and like a shitty camera and normal mic.
Tyler One.
But it's
Tyler
amazing.
One's got no light. He's got no lighting. He still uses the worst mic and headset that you possibly could. You can't even see him on stream. Yeah, he literally plays in the dark. You can't see anything half the time, and it's just you're there because it's Tyler One.
It's quality of content, absolutely. Yeah, awesome. So, we talked about what got you into streaming and what you enjoy about it, obviously what you want to do with the streaming. So this is a question I think is really important to ask because I think a lot of people who are looking into getting into streaming or content creation in general don't take this in consideration. The first question you don't have to answer, it's almost like a preface, but we'll dive in further. But how does streaming work into your daily life? Is there... It's hard because a lot of people, especially you and I, who are both adults, we have bills to pay, chores to do. The dishes don't do themselves, right? And then you also have your relationships with people out in the normal. Do you tell them that you stream? Is it something that you're open about, or is it something that you kind of keep to yourself because there's still that stigma of like, what's going on?
Yeah. So that's a really great question that I struggled with for a long time, and I feel like I'm in a better place with it now. So it was a really weird fine dance, especially at first when I was mayor and I was streaming, because it was like, there's a lot of different people, especially, when you're in political office, who are going to analyze every single thing that you do. And, if I'm online streaming, playing a video game, whatever, there's gonna be people like, why isn't he doing X, Y, or Z?
Yeah,
why isn't he doing this
my
right
God, that
now?
had to be so hard.
Yeah, it's a weird dichotomy, I guess. It was one that I just kind of embraced, and I was like, this is who I am, this is what I'm gonna do, and that's that. As far as my daily life now, for me, I'm like hardcore about routines and planning. Like I am like methodical about like every minute of the day. Like I am doing this from this time to this time. I am doing this from that time to that time. I'm doing that, and it's really like I mean, there's a downside to that too, right? Like I'm really bad at being
spontaneous.
Yes, like it can actually stress me out if I have to break away from like my formula, which isn't always a good thing. But the upside of it is I'm super productive because I plan everything out. So I have a full-time job. I'm a general manager for a transportation company.
Congrats, that's awesome.
I have a wife. I'm a streamer. I stream. I work out. Got a couple friends too, believe it or not. So I make YouTube. Like a lot of people who have started to become content creators. So I talk to, they always ask me like, how do you make so much content while also working a job and having a relationship? And it is hard. But you just gotta plan out. Yeah, you plan out. I sleep 6 hours a day, and you plan out basically every hour of your day. That's the only way to do it, and it's not for everybody, for sure. You can't just kind of okay, I'm gonna stream today. I think I'll hit go live today. You gotta have plans.
Yeah. No, I absolutely would say it's not. Me having ADHD and being fully open about it, I'm non-medicated, by the way. So I manage my ADHD myself. And part of that is that I'm the exact opposite side of that coin. I'm very spontaneous and very open to spontaneous ideas. So sometimes I'll have no plans to stream, and somebody will hit me up with an interesting idea, and I'm like, we're doing this right now. Like, let's go. And then there's times where I have a stream plan, and it's like, yeah, like I have something else going on. I'm good. And it's so hectic. Like it's so much. And I think that routineness has its benefits, because there are certain points in your life where you have to talk to yourself, put your foot down, and have that willpower to say like, I'm doing this. You're right. It's difficult, but I'm going to do this. And I think that a lot of people struggle on that line, because it's like, on one hand, like, would anyone really care if I missed a day? You know what I mean? Whatever else. But then you have that
I'm
other
the
side
one
of
who cares if I miss a day.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, especially with the gym for me, like when I don't go, I feel miserable. And I'm like, I should have just gone. Out. And every time I go, I'm like, the whole ride there, I'm like, this is fucking bullshit. I hate this. I fucking whatever.
So tired. I can't do this.
As soon as I leave, I'm like, hello world, I'm here. Like as soon as I leave the gym, I'm like ready for everything. Like I'm so into everything. And I think that it's important to be able to have both sides of that, where you kind of accept kind of the median. And I think that your way of being completely routine is very, very great, and I envy it. But I think also there's times where someone like you might envy being just a bit more like, we'll see what the day has for us and plan,
Oh yeah, like my wife is a very spontaneous type person, and we can kind of, I think, drive each other nuts in that regard sometimes.
But also balance each other out, probably.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like I need that in my life. I need somebody, who can. She told me the other day that, one of the things that we were talking about things, she's like, I've got you to do a lot of things that you never would have done before. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. Like 100%. Like it's just true. Yeah. Because sometimes you can be too formulaic, and then you can kind of, you got to push those boundaries sometimes.
Formulas are hard, because then you're less likely to find out about things that are outside of your formula.
Yes.
It also stifles your creativity, because sometimes I might be creative at 3 a.m. and I might have a golden idea that I could flesh out right then and there, but only at 3 a.m. Because if you sat me down at noon and you told me to think this idea out, I couldn't do it. Like
I have to write stuff down. Like this is gonna be the second Kanye reference this podcast. I'm sorry, but he has a song. It was like on his second album, I think. He's like, I forgot better shit than you ever thought of, and I totally understand. Like I have thought of things before, and I forgot them, and then it will drive me nuts. And I'm like, I had an idea like 20 minutes ago, and it was really good, and I can't remember what it is now. So like, I have this thing in my phone like that I make notes in. I'll be like anywhere, and I'll just like put a note in my phone
I was gonna show you. I'm the sticky note fucking bandit, dude. Like this is,
there you go.
This is how like I have to do it, because if I don't write sticky notes down and then get them kind of serialized, I will never remember it. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone with the wind.
Sticky
And
note bandit, I like that.
never come. Like this idea will be just absolutely vanished into thin air.
Yep.
And it's crazy sometimes because you will have the entire idea. Like, I don't know how you are of a visual, if you're a visual thinker or you're someone who thinks about like things kind of more mathematically. I know that there's like different sides of that, but I'm very visual and I could see a concept front to end. Like I can see like, oh, if I did a video like this, I would do this, I'd do that. Okay, and I have it set up. If I don't write that down, it's gone. Like there's no chance I'll get it back.
One of the things I started doing over the past year was I'm a big Splitgate fan, and I know a lot of the developers of that game, and I love the game and I want to support it. And so I started writing because I've always been big into writing. Like I said, when I was 14, I started my own website writing gaming news. Yeah. I started college as a journalism major. So I was like, I've never written like original, like, like written content as far as like telling a story, like coming up with characters and writing dialogue and plot. And I critique other people's, movies and game plots and stuff all the time. So why don't I try it? So I've written like 3 of them so far, these like original stories set in the Splitgate universe that I published on Medium. I've got ideas for like 3 more, but there's been these times where I've gone into complete panic because I have this really cool idea for a story. And then like I didn't write it down though, and I forget. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like I was gonna be such a great story and I literally forgot it. And
oh my God, it's so difficult to have such a visceral concept that just escapes you, especially when you know there's potential and you have it. And sometimes it's hard because just being an adult in our situation, the 9 to 5, it's impossible to always have an avenue to put your creativity on a platform. I read a quote the other day that resonated with me so deeply that it shook me. I talk about it almost every day, which was, everyone is an artist until rent's due. And I think that that's such a phenomenal quote because it really talks about how if you had the money to just pay for your food and everything else, you would end up doing something creative. You'd end up following a passion. But when you have to start paying your bills, then you kind of put yourself in like, all right, what can I do to at least pay my bills? And then when you get home, you're tired. That's how a lot of people get into what I call the TV meta, where you just fall asleep, you just get home, you eat some food, you watch TV, and then you fall asleep. And it's like, there's so much wasted time, but I get it. Yeah. I can't fault these people because I've been exhausted to the point where I'm like, the most I can handle right now is an episode of a TV show.
I mean, there's 2 sides to it, right? So like I think of like I spend, like 5 days a week, full-time job, and as many of us do, Yeah. So on one hand, I think about like, man, imagine all I could accomplish if I didn't have to work that job, right? Like I could write this and I could make this album and it's true. But the flip side of that is I've gotten really good at, okay, I've got, 4 to 5 hours on these days a week to produce what I want to produce. So it makes you like a more efficient creator, and it makes you have to like channel that. Okay, I got to do this now. Like this is what the time I got.
It's hard because those are the times that I think really make great men, because you really have to be able to tap into something else, because there are times where that happens, where you have that free time, but just trying to get creativity to happen when you're tired and like exasperated, it's impossible. To try to be like, all right, think of like, what's a video I could do right now? And you're like so tired that like
that's so hard. The whole dude. like when you realize all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're like, man, like I haven't made a YouTube video in like 9 days. Like, what am I gonna do? And then you start to feel the stress, because you just haven't been thinking about it, or you haven't been inspired.
And then on the weekend when you're having coffee, you're like, what if I did a video about this? And it literally comes out of nowhere, and it's just like an amazing idea.
I seem to go through bursts. Like I won't have any ideas for like a YouTube video for like, like a week or something. And then all of a sudden I'll have like 4 or 5 videos that I'm trying to make like, at the same time. Like all of a sudden it just...
It's crazy how that works. So I know we started this talking about how does streaming work in a daily life and everything, but I kind of think that, you're similar to me in the sense that we both have a significant other we've been with for a very long time. How is streaming fit into just general relationships? I mean, we talked about work, how it goes with like the typical 9 to 5 and how it goes typically in your daily life. But for the people who you're most intimate to, your very close friends and family, is streaming still something that's like stigmatized, or is it something that you've made apparent, like, hey, this is priority? I need you guys to accept and respect that because it's something that I care about deeply.
Both. I think everybody respects it pretty well, and my wife has been like very supportive. Like she bought me a lot of my streaming equipment and like upgraded a bunch of my stuff. Got me a brand new Secret Lab desk recently.
This
like
was Christmas
amazing.
right here. This might
yeah, there
Christmas.
You go. So like in that regard, my friends are all pretty good about it. I definitely think there's a lot of people that don't, still in my family and stuff, that just don't know anything about it, and that's totally fine. It doesn't offend me. I don't care.
I tell them that I podcast because it's so much easier than
makes
just
a little
saying,
more sense.
Yeah,
like I'm a YouTuber, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think most people are pretty good about it, and I think in a way too, sometimes it can even enhance like a friendship or a relationship too, because like I've had people pop into my chat that are my friends, and then like it's just like, oh, they cared that much to come in, and even if it's just put a joke in there to make me laugh or something like that, even if it's for 30 seconds, it's like, oh, that's really appreciated.
I've never had it until phase 1. I've been doing the phase 1 stuff you've seen, but I've never had that until phase 1. There's always been this weird, like, here's this guy who like plays video games and does whatever, and then here's him in social situations without the sunglasses, and it was like this delineating line that was like, all right, here's 1 and 1. But then it became this thing where all of a sudden I have people who I see at the bar or whatever else, wherever I may end up, saying, just vouch for FlexChapman on phase.com, you can too, and they're posting these things on Twitter, and I'm like, what is this? It's so weird. My girlfriend's best friend the other day had her and her sister watching my stream on different accounts. They both followed and subbed, and it's like crazy. It's crazy because you almost think that line can't be bridged, but as soon as you kind of put your foot down and say, hey, this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm comfortable with, and you accept that, I feel like everyone else accepts it so much easier. You have to believe it yourself before they do. Yeah,
that, and I think the rise of gaming and streaming and YouTubing and all this stuff over the past, like, I don't know, three or so years, people like Ninja, championing it, and these big brands like becoming mainstream, like FaZe. Snoop Dogg was wearing a FaZe chat.
That was crazy. Crazy.
I was at the gas station the other day, and that, like, have you ever seen that, like, Cheddar News or whatever? It plays at the gas pumps. So I'm pumping gas, and this news story comes on about TSM while I'm at the gas pump, and like,
really?
if you had told me that would have happened 20, even 10 years ago.
TSM's really not even in the news recently, so that's
they're not. They're not very mainstream. I mean, they're huge, obviously, but they're not like a mainstream.
After the Daquan video came out, I don't know if you watched that at all. Daquan did his giant video about TSM and moving to NRG and how that all went. He did like an hour-long video. It's pretty incredible. You should check it out.
I think that's helping bridge that gap for people too. And just a lot of people who never played games in the past are now becoming gamers, whether it be mobile gamers or whatever. So I think it's becoming more and more acceptable, which is a good thing.
I think it's good that there are people like Doc and like Timmy, and also there are plenty of other creators, and they're not immediately coming to myself for name, but that are making streaming not just something that is just someone playing a game.
Yeah.
Right. And you have people like Aiden Ross, you have people like Amaranth, you have all these phenomenal titans who are creators who are in their own niche that is not playing games, but are piloting Twitch to this eternal succession, to their, a wealth that'll benefit their family for eons and eons. And I think it's so interesting to see these people who are pioneering it in different ways, but I also think that like there hasn't been a good representation still to this day of somebody gaming and traversing that bridge. I mean, there's kind of Ninja with New Year's and everything else, but I still think that like it's more difficult because Snoop Dogg wearing the FaZe thing was amazing, but it doesn't necessarily equate to people caring about FaZe more. It's more a publicity thing for FaZe amongst gamers.
Brand recognition.
Yeah, but it's amongst gamers because anyone else, if FaZe posted Snoop Dogg wore a chain and some random person who doesn't interest in gaming at all saw that, they'd be like, who cares? Like, this is nothing. But when somebody sees a point of content that's very, very interesting and is not gaming, like Doc's production, it's something that is willing to draw in even the average crowd, the people who just watch TV.
Right. And something that I've been talking about recently is, FaZe is going public and becoming a publicly traded stock in the very near future. It's supposed to complete like before the end of March, but those things get delayed all the time. And that's one of those things too that has that's not something that, like, gamers so much are likely going to care about, because most, a lot of gamers aren't even old enough to buy a stock. But
Yeah, honestly.
but all of a sudden, all these business minded folk see, okay, this what's this esports organization as a stock? That's interesting. What is that? And then they start to research it, and they're like, wow, this stock has it's increased, 15-20%. Maybe I should look into this,
And they're
whatever
taking
this.
one over, right? They're taking one over, kind of.
They're merging with like an investment firm,
Yeah.
basically. So it's an already existing stock that's going to change from like BRPM or BPRM, whatever it is, to the stock symbol will literally be phase.
That's crazy.
And just pretty interesting things that you never would have thought would have happened when I was a kid. That's for sure.
Absolutely, that's nuts. Mayor, I don't mean to cut the immersion too much. This is something I've never done before, but would you be okay if I just went and pee quickly?
Yeah, I don't care.
It's so random. It's so random. I know, and I'm gonna edit this out. Don't worry about it. But for some reason, just right now, my stomach's like, it's fucking go time.
See, live stream, man. This is
live.
part of the struggle.
It's live. Absolutely. Talk about whatever you want. I'll be back in like 1 minute. I mean it.
Talk about whatever you want. So I guess we're gonna talk about Flex and his dedication to fitness. I also do push-ups on stream. Make sure you guys come through, drop me a follow, drop me a sub. I'll do push-ups for either. I've done 1,200 push-ups on stream this year so far. So I set a goal to see how many push-ups I could do on stream. 4 follows and 4 subs in 2022, and we're at 1,200 so far. So a little bit of a fitness work in there for you guys. Also, Twitch, MayorReynolds TV, just MayorReynolds actually, not TV. YouTube, MayorReynolds TV, Instagram, MayorReynolds TV, Twitter, MayorReynolds TV, TikTok, MayorReynolds TV. Come find me everywhere. Join my Discord, all that stuff. We should have timed Flex. I should have timed him to see how long he takes. I think I can hear him. I think he's coming back. Maybe. I can hear myself through his headset now. AFK. Oh, G Fuel Code Mayor too. I should have just done the Breaking Bad Jesse scene where it just holds, looks like I'm drinking for like a really long time. That's the best I could do. Flex drinks too much water. I bet you Flex is one of those guys that carries around a gallon jug of water at the gym. We're gonna ask him when he gets back. Anybody seen Flex at the gym? What's Flex's bench? That's a serious question. I'm doing my best to fill the void here.
Okay, I'm back. I'm so sorry.
I have 2 questions for you.
Possible. That was such a random and abrupt introduction.
I have 2 questions for you that I worked up while you're gone.
Okay, yeah.
Do you carry a gallon jug of water at the gym?
I don't, but I do carry a backpack that has water bottles all in it. I have water bottles all in my backpack. Cool. I'm a huge hydration person. I drink so much water per day. I have a case of water outside my room that you can see on the third person perspective camera whenever I'm doing those kinds of streams, but I love it. I used to be a gallon water person. I used to get the giant Poland Springs grippable ones, but it was just like, it was so invasive and so difficult to try to just do casually. You just felt like a tool. And
what's your bench? Your max?
So that's a hard question because right now I'm not sure. Because so where I live in New York, there's been mask mandates Given, taken, given, taken. And in the last given, where we didn't have to wear masks, I was going to this gym every single day consistently. And I was able to get up to 450, which was awesome.
Wow.
On
that's
bench
a lot.
press. Yes, it was awesome. And then after that, they put the masks back on. It was terrible. So then I switched gyms. In the meantime, I actually got one of those cool work benefits where your health insurance gives you like a card that like pays for anything that's like fitness related, massage, whatever be it. And I paid off a year at this gym. But then as soon as I did that, they started the mask mandate again. And it was miserable because I'd go there, and when you're doing those heavy lifts, you can't have a mask on. It's terrible. And also the person who I was going with at the time stopped going for the same reason. He didn't enjoy the mask at all. And so I no longer had a safe spot. I no longer had someone to push me, because you need someone with you to hit those limits, like to hit those absolute caps at your ability.
And you need a spotter.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like things like squat and deadlift, less. You don't need somebody with you as much, but sometimes you just need somebody with you for the big things, you know, benching and shoulder workouts and whatnot. And it's something where, you know, because those ones, they have high limits too. Like squats, I'm still able to do about 520, somewhere around. I was around 600 before, but I'm lessened from there. And deadlifts, I was able to get to about 550 before I ended up having to.
That's crazy.
Cut back again. So right now I don't know where my limits are. They're probably much lower. I'd probably say somewhere in the 400s. But I was in the 1200 club for a very long time. What about yourself?
I'm trying to hit 285 on bench. I weigh 175. I'm trying to hit 285.
Well, that's incredibly impressive. I mean,
I'm at 175 right now, or 275 right now.
315 is one of those benchmarks that once you get to, it's like unbelievable. And anything above 400 just hurts. It's so difficult. Anything above 400, doesn't matter what the workout is, it just hurts in a way that you can't prepare yourself for.
Yeah.
You just kind of got to accept the blows.
I think I'll get to 400.
You might.
Next
time, who knows?
Next time if I hit 400, we'll do another podcast and we'll talk about benching 400.
Well, I'd worked out for a very long time, and I was lucky to have a lot of great friends when I started who were very into it all. And I remember they introduced me to people like C.T. Fletcher, Mike Rashid, and people who were really doing it, Jay Cutler, just a lot of people at the time who were pioneering what it was to start doing content creation in fitness. I think C.T. Fletcher did it best. I think he was the first person to really take fitness to that level. And then following after him were a lot of strong men, a lot of calisthenics people. You have Athlete and X. You have so many people who do that, but it was just something where at right place, right time. They were putting out the best content, and I was absorbing it all. So I was able to hit different levels of understanding of what I was doing, and not just doing things, but understanding why I'm doing something. And that's what a lot of people get wrong with the gym. They just do what people tell them, and they don't understand what they're trying to hit and feel. And I feel like people don't explain that. And they were telling you like that you're supposed to feel this right here, if for a specific reason, or right here.
If you don't, you're doing it wrong.
Exactly, And you were able to then kind of like sharpen it. And I was so grateful for that, because I was able to really increase very rapidly. You know, again, 9 years of working out to get to 400 is a long time, but it's only long if you haven't started it yet.
That's something that like what though? Like a percentage of 1% of the population will ever accomplish. Like that's pretty amazing.
A lot of people can do it though. It's hard because, you know, people only put their best side forward. So when you see a lot of content creation, it's always
a lot of people
doing
can do it that weigh over 400 pounds.
Yeah, true. I'm heavier than I look though. I'm 5. No, I am 7'11". I'm 7 feet tall. Stream. Don't ever come from. Yeah, so very tall. But I weigh 230 pounds, and I've hovered around somewhere between 200 to 240.
That's like double your body weight though. That's nuts.
Yeah, but again, it took so long. I mean, it's not something that's overnight. And I have one of those chests that doesn't show up very well. Like I have friends who can only bench, 280, and their chests are like massive and posturous, and mine's so like, I used to say I have a washboard chest, like, because people say washboard abs. My chest went right down, but I could do the weight and with great form, and you could never check me on it. And I have videos of it, but the hard part is, it doesn't matter when you're at the beach and someone's looking at you and they don't see it, but it's like, trust me, I do. I'm stronger than him.
When I graduated, I was 120 pounds. I've got just like, I'm just a small guy. Like, I mean, I'm 5'11", but I'm just built. Like, I'm just thin guy. It's taken me this long to weigh 175 pounds.
In a good way though, I can imagine, because it's something that you were able to look back on and be like, wow. 120 and 170 is 50 weight. Yeah. That's 50 pounds of like, oh my God, that's incredible. Yeah. That's incredible. So let's move into question 4. I'm so eager to get past the 5 questions now. Normally I'm not. I enjoy this portion a lot more, but I just feel like you and I have so much more to talk about that's not in these 5 questions that it's like, you know, I'm very, very anticipating that.
You can pull a Kevin Durant and just give you a 1-word answer if you want.
Well, this one we'll skip the subcategories, and because usually this segment takes 40 minutes, as I told you in the pre-talk on Twitter. But you know we're looking at a minute 20. Question 4 would be, you know, given everything that you have going on, and you work, you know, whatever 9 to 5, doesn't matter if that's your hours. You work a job 5 days a week. You do everything. What would a perfect content day look like for you? And this encompasses posting to each of the things that you think you would want to post to. This encompasses if you had nothing but time, a free day, 24 hours, what would be your maximum efficiency?
Oh man. So I would say I'm trying. That's hard to answer because I put everything through the framework of what I realistically have. You know, the time I realistically have. So I would say. So one thing that I think I do pretty well now, which I would like to continue, is I'm able to produce like probably about 4 to 5 like TikToks or YouTube shorts per stream, like from my streams. So I feel like I'm producing that. That is what I want, the level I want to be at. So that's one thing I would want to continue, like 4 to 5 TikToks or YouTube shorts created per stream. So that's like over like the course of at least a 3 to 4 hour stream.
Shout out to Ludwig for pioneering that. The content filtering that he was able to do, I think, really set a pace for everybody. Because Ludwig did it best. He was like, listen, I'm gonna take a stream. That stream is gonna become 2 YouTube videos. Those 2 YouTube videos are gonna be 10 TikToks and everything else. And you couldn't avoid him. No matter where you were, his content was there.
So I would say like, you know, 4 to 5 TikToks or YouTube shorts. At least a 4 hour stream, maybe like 2 to 3 like full scale YouTube videos a week, at least 1 podcast. Instagram photos is something that I'm pretty bad at. That I'd like to be much better at.
Me too. I'm so bad. I have the insecurity.
Tweets, tweets I already think I fulfill pretty well. I think that's easy.
I can't take photos of myself for like Instagram.
I can't either. I'm terrible at it.
You know what? I'll take them. I do take them. I just don't post them because I'm like,
well, yeah.
And post, you're just like, oh God, like, yeah, like you almost like look at it as if it's cringy, but then you think like, well, everyone else is doing it, so just fucking put it out there.
Just post it anyway. That's what I told my wife the other day.
But then
she was like,
stand there and you're like, nah, like, I could do better.
I told my wife the other, like, she was looking at my Twitter the other day. She said, like, I was going through your Twitter, like, looking at what you're doing, and she was like, those like pictures that you post sometimes when you go live, they're like not good. I was like, I know, but like, I don't know what else to do, you know, like it's the best I got, you know, like I got, there's got to be some photo, you know, like I can't just not post photos. Like sometimes it's got to go up, and it is what it is.
That's why I started doing those thumbnails. Better than what 80% of
people can do, probably, even though it's not good enough, you know. So
those thumbnails I post about the games whenever I go live, the reason I started those is because I hated
those are great. I love those.
I hated posting pictures of myself doing the same, like, hey, we're going live, like whatever thing. Like I hated that so much. So I was like, how can I put myself saying I'm going live, but not in a way that makes me feel like I'm embarrassed? So then I did it in a way that was twice as embarrassing because it was almost it was funny at that point. It's like satire.
Yours are great though. Yeah, I love it. That's exactly it. They're always funny. They make me laugh, and it still gets your face out there. I have the problem. I really hate my own smile. I don't know why.
Oh, me too.
I do. I can't stand it.
Me too.
I have a hard time with it.
Whitening strips, the white teeth. I have everything. I did the straightening. Nothing has made me be like, I love this. And I think that also comes from my youth of having multiple older brothers because they were very vicious. And like they would often call things that you did, you know, they would use very derogatory terms towards it. Like I'd post a picture of myself on Facebook and they'd be like, oh, you F, like you're acting really G, you're doing all that. And I'd be like, I'd feel so attacked that like, I just put it in my head like, oh, that's lame. Like the losers do that or like whatever. And then when everyone's doing it and they're getting success, I'm like, well, I should also be doing that because it's working for them. And then I set myself up to do it and I'm like, I hate this. I hate this because it doesn't feel me. Like it doesn't feel like I would post it. Like Moist Critical doesn't do that. Like, you know what I mean? People don't do that don't care about that shit and they find their own success. But it's also a great way to get to that point where you can then make the decisions.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I've said that before, like, you know, why don't you smile more in photos and stuff? And it's like, I don't want a fake smile. Like, I don't want to look miserable either, obviously. but I don't want to do that. It's not me to do that like stereotypical like
yeah.
It's my, like, sorry, it's not me, you know, like I don't know.
I know exactly what you mean, man. I feel like it's one of those things that is so hard to explain to people who don't understand it, because my significant other, I love her to death, Liv. She does a very similar thing in content creation, but she is a beautician. She does hair and lashes. And so she has to post that stuff, and she's making TikToks of her lashes and her clients and stuff like that. And then she also takes so many photos of herself a day that she posts on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat and stuff. And I'm like, how do you do that without feeling like weird? Like, how do you take those photos without feeling like you're like a weirdo, like doing this self-obsessive thing? She's like, well, you just do it enough till it doesn't.
Yeah, right.
And it sounds so easy, but then you start doing it and you're like, ew, no, I'm gonna burn my phone. I'll do that another time when I feel better, but I feel like you never feel better enough. So I think it is one of those things that you just kind of have to do until you're like, all right, you know what I mean? We got it.
Yeah, my wife is really good at that. Taking like pictures of herself, and she always just like, her smile's perfect and looks every single time 100%, beautiful, and it's just like I wish I had that ability.
Well, Liv told me that she feels the same way, but she just does it because it's just like, at a certain point, it's like, who cares? At a certain point, it's who cares. But I think in content creation, it's weird because you have people who are actively trying to criticize you. Like especially on TikTok, you'll see it all the time. You post a thing that's like, I just saved this kitten, and they're like, so you hate dogs?
Oh my
like,
God. I am so good at setting off kids on TikTok. It's like my number one talent. Like any video I have that gets any type of attention, like the comments are like 80%. It's like roasting me, and I don't care. It's engagement, right? I'm like, I don't post away, so it's gonna help the algorithm.
It also feels like, come on, dude, like, give me a break, because you're only making it harder for me to even do this. Like, it's one of those things I love doing. I think that I said I didn't want to get into subcategories, but there's one question I do want to ask in regards to the perfect content day. What do you think are the biggest things that hold you back from like your potential? I would say, to answer this question, to give you some time to think, I would say the thing that holds me back the most is definitely just being equal to my partner. Liv does a lot. She works just as hard as I do. She's in the salon doing hair, lashes, everything, bending over. Her back hurts. She still comes home. She still makes time for dishes and things like that. And I think about it like, well, I have 2 jobs. She has 1, because I have to work and then stream and create content, and she only has to do that. But she's also creating content and doing things. And so I think that my biggest setback is how it's so easy to let your life get in the way of like, well, it's either do dishes or record this TikTok and edit it. I'm going to do the dishes because, I'm going to be fair to my partner. But then it's like, is there a way I could have done both? And I'm constantly questioning myself. So what do you think that your biggest, like, the thing that if you could just, I wouldn't even say get rid of, but the thing that you think holds you back the most?
I would say I would categorize it as like 2 things. My own patience or lack thereof. And where was I gonna go? My own patience and lack thereof, and then also my own sometimes indecision in the type of content that I want to make in a given moment. So for example, I say patience, I mean there's sometimes where I know I should edit a video more, or that I should re-record something, and I'm just like, man, I really just don't have the time to do this, or I can make the time to do it. I just got to change my priorities in my content and change my content schedule. But again, I'm so formulaic and I've got all these ideas. Sometimes I'm just like, put it out there. And sometimes that's a good thing. Like sometimes you should just put something out there and move on and not worry about it. But there's definitely times too where I feel like, man, I watch something back. I'm like, man, I really should have just spent a little bit more time editing this, and it would have been a lot better. Or re-recorded this or that kind of thing. It's like my own lack of patience. Like I should have done this better than I did. And then I think, what the heck was the other thing I said?
You said your patience and lack thereof, and then you said your oh my God, I'm drawing a blank now.
What the heck did I say?
I should have written
my own indecision sometimes. Yes,
indecisiveness.
Exactly. So sometimes, for example, this is just something that every streamer deals with, right? It's like, what game am I gonna play? at any given moment today or long term? Do I
Us
want to play
variety
this
people
type of
are struggling, dude. Us variety people have that issue all the time because sometimes, and I'm sure you know, some games just perform better than others.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you know it, and you play this one game and you see like your actual viewer count come back, or what you'd call your actual viewer count. Then all comes back and you're like, oh, like I'm hitting my rhythm, and then you try something different and it's like it just instantly dies, and you're like, well, you know, I could do that other thing again, but it's like, do I want to? Like, do I want to do the other thing again?
Right.
Like,
and I'm like, I go through periods too where I'm naturally a competitive person. So there's times where I'm like trying to like, I'm gonna grind to this rank, and I want to be this, and I want to be that, and you know how it is. It can actually make kind of like sour your mood at times, and it kind of hurts the quality of your stream because you're so fixated on trying to perform well, and you're not engaged with chat. Or things aren't going your way.
You're engaging so much with chat that you play bad because you're like.
There's that. And it's that type of thing where sometimes I have to take a step back. Like, I love being competitive, but at the same time, I'm like, is this why people are watching me though? You know, like, no, probably not. Like, if they want to watch a competitive gamer, they're probably gonna go watch ACU or Shroud or whatever. Yeah. So I struggle with that balance sometimes.
I try to be very honest with that because I try to be very honest with the fact that like I am very variety because I can't stand to play a game sometimes for more than 3 hours, 4 hours.
Oh, I'm the same way.
Even Lost Ark, which I love Lost Ark to death. It gets to a point where I'm just like, I need to shoot someone in a game. Like, I need to go to a game and get some violence in. And then you get some violence and you're like, you know what? I need to do something that requires more thoughts. And then I go play Teamfight Tactics. And then it's like, I want to play so many games in a short time frame, but stream and content creation doesn't respond to that well. The analytics prove that. The more that you jump around, the less you're going to hold an audience or hold their attention, because as soon as you switch, it's an easy way for people to just leave.
I just like I'm really good at Halo. Like Halo Infinite right now is probably the game that I'm the best at.
I know I have a few Onyx friends who are like, they love it, man.
Yeah, and like, so I'm like really good at it, and I'm like, I'm gonna grind Onyx. Like, I should. I want to have this under my belt. And then like find myself on stream like sometimes when I probably should be playing Halo Infinite and grinding rank, and I'm like, man, I just want to drop into Apex, or man, I just want to play Elden Ring right now. And then I'm like, oh, damn it. And then I get all stressed out. I'm not going to hit Onyx because I'm wasting too much time playing, you know, whatever. It's a weird.
But then you play that and your stream is way worse because you're not focusing on your stream. You're focusing on the game. And then it's like, you know, oh, I hit Onyx, but at what cost? You know, now nobody gives a fuck that I hit Onyx because I was just doing it.
I was a competitive douchebag for 3 weeks straight, and I was toxic. And
it's a very difficult balance, and I think that I haven't found a solution for it yet, because some people just say find your genre and then do that, like find your genre or your game and do that, but I cannot, because I just enjoy too many things too often. And I wouldn't say that I'm as, you know, not to interject, and I apologize, I wouldn't say that I'm as niche as some people like Ludwig, where it's like you might find battleships one day or an Amazon purchasing the other day or whatever. I would say that it's a very niche bunch of games that I play that all kind of correlate. But at the same time, it's like that works for him because he already has an audience who's going to watch him do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
But for me, I have an audience who might be interested in me playing Valorant that day, but as soon as I'm sick of Valorant, they're sick of my stream. And it's like, it's so hard to make that manage well.
I do think, though, there's something to be said, too, if you can, and I think you do a good job at this, and I like to think that I do, too, that you can also build this reputation of like, oh, what's he playing today? Like that kind of thing. And like, I discover, like I said, I play a lot of like indie games here and there. Like people like, and I can't speak for everybody, but I definitely have a lot of viewers that like the fact that I can find these like weird, obscure games and then expose them to them, and that they can look to me for that. And you know, you do a really good job. Like one day I was watching you play Rust, and like I've never watched anybody play Rust, and like I saw you were playing it. I was like, I'm gonna watch Flex play Rust. You know, like it makes every stream interesting too. You know, so there's there's challenges and there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah, it's tough because the thing is, the things that you want to do versus the things that work best for your content are separate. And I remember I actually quoted this in a previous podcast, but I'll say it again. And now I've watched it happen twice. But the first time was someone being very honest. I know a partner on Twitch. I'm not going to expose them. I won't even give away their gender or anything. But they had said to me, And this was a unique conversation because it's not often you get to speak to a partner so candidly. But I had this opportunity when playing World of Warcraft. I talked to this partner streamer and I was telling them, like, what tools did you apply to hit partner? Like, because, you know, you have your momentum and then you get to like the 10 to 20 range. And then it's like very stagnant there. Like you've got your core community and audience, and it's like kind of in this like ball of like, all right, this is my core community audience. How do you start adding to that extra, that bridge gap? You know what well, there it is. I said she. That's my fault. But I'm still not saying a name.
Now there's 1 million potential partners you could be talking about.
But she had said to me, I already said she. It doesn't matter at this point. I'm still not going to say who it is. She had said, I played Fortnite creative for a year. Yeah. And hit partner. And she said, as long as you do Fortnite creative every day, you're eventually going to hit a point where you have enough viewers to apply for partner and get it. And I was so like stunned by that. Like it was like very like jarring because at the time I had stopped playing Fortnite and I started playing other games, and I was like,
I also think that's bad advice, to be honest.
It's bad advice. So then I just seen somebody else, and this is not me talking any kind of negativity. I love this content creator. She is also,
it works for her, and that's great. Yeah.
She's phenomenal. There's someone who I will name who's named MovoXO, right? I think it's XO Movo XO, right? Or something similar to that. And Movo was somebody who was getting around 20 viewers, probably beginning of 2021, right? Around 20 viewers, same as me. And I remember because somebody who comes to my streams, Frank Storm, Pack Eskimo, were viewers of her who asked her to host me. So she hosted me the one time and we had talked and whatnot. And then I hosted her, she hosted me, and it was a back and forth kind of engagement. And then she had this incremental grind. And just this week I was on Twitter and she said, live, same stream, but now with a check mark. And she had posted that she had hit partner. And she was doing Fortnite creative that day again. And I was thinking like, damn, like that's an honest recipe. Like you can just do that and eventually a partner and then do what you want to do, right? Like it's like an honest to God recipe. And I think to myself all the time, like if you were given the opportunity to say, do this thing that you hate, get $1 million, you often think like, I would just do it. Like I would do the thing I hate for $1 million. Like I would suck it up and deal with it. You know, stay in this house alone for a year. You get $1 million. You'd be like, well, I would do that easily. I could stay in a house for a year. Who cares? Whatever. And then you see somebody do it. Now this person's doing it. They hit partner in a year, and you're like, I don't want to do that. Like that's I don't want to do that. Like that's not my jive. But it's working. So I don't know. I just think that it's so much more difficult now because there's so many different paths forward. I forgot what got us on this point in the first place, but
I don't know. It's a good conversation. I don't know how we started it.
It is a good conversation, but it's so interesting how the path to partner is so, it's not as straightforward and cut and dry as it should be. I think that there are easy ways, especially with games like Roblox, Minecraft, and Fortnite. I think
there's a lot of algorithmic luck to it too, to be honest. So like, you know, like nobody will say this for sure, but like I got monetized on YouTube recently. I hit YouTube partner.
Oh, congrats, man! That's awesome.
And thanks. But I've definitely noticed that since then, my subscriber count has been increasing at a faster rate than it took me during the time to finally get to there. And I feel like, you know, somewhere in the algorithm, YouTube is, and it's not like I have 1 million YouTube subscribers, but I just feel like it's growing in like increments of 10 a lot faster.
Yeah.
I had to grind for like every single sub I ever got on YouTube, you know, for like 2 years or something.
Yeah.
And now I'm just gaining like 10 a week. And it just feels like there's certain check marks along the way where they'll be like, okay, once you reach this, we'll push your videos out to a few more people, and then a few more people, and a few more people.
I also think though that there's a dedication with the community seeing rather that you have achieved a level of solidity in your content enough.
Yeah.
That it's worth supporting, because you see there's 1 million people at 100 subscribers on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Once you're at 1,000 though, people see like you're a bit more serious. You kind of have goals and ambitions. You kind of have a niche fleshed out. You know what you're doing. Maybe the editing isn't where you want it to be. Maybe whatever. All that stuff is negligible. You are growing, and people want to hop on a ship that is starting to grow
there
and
to
sail.
Stay. Yeah.
Than they do to start it up. You know.
Yeah.
It's so much harder to get something off the ground, but once it's off the ground, everyone wants to jump on because it already has its momentum. And I think it's it's so difficult. So I can see that being absolutely true.
Yeah. There's some luck to it.
I just want to finally finish off these 5 questions. We're at 1:30. This is a record time to get through these, but I think it's been amazing this entire way so far. So this one, I'm not even going to get into subcategories. I'll just ask it as plain as could be. You know, people talk all the time about, you know, 5-year plans and things like that. I think that with streaming, it's a bit difficult because there is so much luck to it. Mm-hmm. So if you were in the future looking back, what would you say your end goal is? Like from right now, what would you say that your goal of all of this is? What do you think that you hope to achieve? And then where do you think that, you know, in the future you hope to be at?
So that's a great question. So when I first started streaming, like when I very, very, very first started, and I think most people would tell you this, right? Like they're like, my goal is to be a full-time streamer. You know, I want to stream full-time. I want to do this full-time. I want to play video games for 40 hours a week and get paid for it. You know, that's like,
yeah,
that's a dream, right? Now we're, you know, after 3.5 years or whatever it's been, getting close to 4, I'm coming at it from what opportunities can this open up for me beyond that? I still want to stream. I still want to do all the things that I'm doing, but what can I do beyond that? Like, can I work at a game developer? Obviously not coding because I gave up on that a long time ago, but you know, can I get into writing, for example, for a game developer somewhere because I've made contacts? Can I, you know, I had this past year, I did have the opportunity to cast several pro Splitgate tournaments kind of right before it blew up, because after it blew up,
I want to do casting so fucking bad. I'm so envious.
Tons of it's got big bucks behind it now. You know, I had that opportunity, and like once you really get going with it and you develop some skills, it can open more doors for you as a creative person. And I think that's really what I'm interested in at this point is what sure, I want to make money and so on and stuff, and I hope that it can lead to a full-time creative career of some kind, but I don't necessarily see streaming full-time as that like end goal. I mean, would I still accept it? Sure I would, but I'm not sure that that's like, and you hear that from other big streamers all the time who've made it, right? They want to, like, a lot of people have hopped to YouTube gaming because they want to stream less hours and focus on other creative endeavors, and that's what YouTube gaming has allowed a lot of them to do.
Yeah,
they don't want to just play 10 hours a day.
Yeah, no, I 100% understand that too. And I get that too. And I talk about that with myself, I think, very often, because I think that streaming is the thing that I'm best at, but it's because I'm also the best at a few select other talents. I'm very good at just talking. I'm very good at drawing things out of people to continue a conversation and a thought process. I'm good at enunciating myself, and I'm also good at making myself like something to draw alert to. And I think that's the best way to word it, because I don't think attention's a great way to word it. I want to make sure that whenever I stream or I do any kind of content, your eyes have to be there for whatever I'm doing. And I think that that's what I try to do best at. But that doesn't always mean that the streams and everything else are going to have that, because they're long form content. It's harder to do that. And so there's always the conversation of like, well, should I just do YouTube? Because maybe I can have that small 20-minute segment be full throttle, as opposed to a 4-hour segment where there's portions in between where I'm full throttle and portions in between where I'm very silent. So, you know, I get that 100%. I don't know if my end goal is even fully just streaming, but I know that there's something about content creation that's so liberating and so free and so fun that it's like, you know, and it's also what you care about too. Yeah. You know, Liz mentioned to me because, and I'm sure you know this, well, maybe you don't actually, because you were a mayor, and I want to talk about that soon. But, you know, there's the point where, you know, Liv and I have been together since we were very younger, since we were 13, right? Oh, wow. Yeah, so we met very young, and we've been together ever since. Like, it's just like, hey, nice to meet you, you're forever. And we did it. And so there's been talks of like times where she's like, you're good at streaming, and I get that, but what if you applied that talent somewhere else? And I'm just like, I could, but I don't want to. Yeah. Like, yes, would my things be great at sales? Yes, and I've done sales jobs, but is that what I want to do? No. I want to do this.
I totally get what you're saying. I think one of the things that I try to do at least is to at least dabble in applying those skills to other things, because you might try something else, like you said, and just be like, no, I don't want to do that, and that's totally fine. But then you also might force yourself to do something, and you find out like, oh, this really worked for me really well, or I did have a lot of fun with it, or whatever. So I mean, that's like casting. When I first got asked to do casting,
I was just going to talk about that.
I really don't see myself as like, you know, like I've never liked my own voice, you know, and like your voice is like, you have a very great, like you said, you're very good at that. Your voice is compelling, like you pronounce your words very well, like you're good at all that stuff. I was like, I don't see myself as a caster, but I do have a lot of knowledge that I could.
That's more important. That's way more important.
I'm very invested. But I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to do it. But at first I was like, oh man, I don't know. But I kind of jumped on it, and it was fun. And now I've got it on my resume.
I want to do it so bad. I want to cast so bad. And I've been looking for opportunities. Really, well, it started off as a joke. So there was this joke that happened where I was making fun of Fortnite YouTubers back when they used to play nothing but Fortnite. When I was in my early streaming career, I did a 365 challenge where I streamed every single day for a year. And like this was through funerals, birthdays, everything. Like it was like I streamed every single day. And there was during this segment where I started joking about the Fortnite streamers on YouTube who'd be like, oh my God, look at what's happening. Look, this person's jumping off the thing. Like and subscribe right now if you want to see what happens, because we're going to check it. And like, we were like, everyone's laughing about it. And that led to me imitating casters. And so I was doing it as a total joke. Like, and he goes to the left, looking right there, flank opportunity coming from, and like, it was like
I saw you casting yourself in a clip the other day, I think.
Yeah. So it started as a joke. And then I realized that like, I was just kind of good at it. Like I was kind of like decent at doing it. And then I started doing it more in games during my live streams. And then it really hit when I started playing Valorant, because when I was playing Valorant, people would sound like, they would say like, you sound like a Valorant caster. Because I would be like, hey guys, what's going on? Are you ready to win this game today? And they'd be like, why do you sound like somebody who should be announcing the game? Like somebody. And because of that, I started doing that, but I haven't had any direct opportunities. But before that,
try with a small game. Try it with a small game.
That's actually what I'm going to mention right now.
Might blow up.
I had that and I whiffed the opportunity. I just want to say that. When I was doing the 365 challenge and a little bit beyond that, it was actually a little bit past the 365 challenge. There's a game called Diabolical. And I know that game. Yes. Diabolical's actual Twitch account came to my stream because the one day I played it, and they were like telling me like, we'd love you to do like tournaments and things like that. My logo
was in that game.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. That's so cool. They wanted me to cast their things, and I told them at the time like, I'll think about it. And at the time I was so not interested in casting. I was like, that's not what I care about. And I didn't care about Diabolical at the time because I played it for, I'd say probably a good 50 hours, and I was just not interested. I was like, I gave it a fair shot. It's not my cup of tea. Like
I get what you mean though, as far as like, you don't want to get into something half committed either. Like if you're not feeling passionate about it, you don't want to be like, yeah, I'll do it, kind of. You don't want to be like against your own will. Exactly.
But now I look back at that saying like, there was my ticket and I burnt it. I literally burnt it because it was right there for the taking. It could have just, maybe figured it out. And that's what I'm hoping for. But I think it's so funny because I think it's also important for any creator who's watching this. That is the goal of this podcast, is help creators understand that there's more to it than just going live, right? There's a lot going on. I think it's important for any creator watching to understand that sometimes you might miss an opportunity. It doesn't mean it's the end of the chapter. It just means that like it's something to look back on and learn from.
I got a good story. I got a really good story. I don't know if you've heard this one or not. And this one probably will burn me for the rest of my life. So we've referenced Doc multiple times. He's definitely an inspiration to me. Just, not gonna fanboy over him any longer, I guess. But inspiration. No, he's of all my streamers ever, he's number one. I mean, what he was able to do, from the Slick Daddy Club to everything in breaking his immersion, to his the Alex UFO series, to everything, he's just proved that he's a step above, and he still isn't getting the recognition that I think that he deserves. No. But also it's because not every person is ready to sign up for
semi-mediocre gameplay plus a show, right?
Yeah.
It's a hard package to sell because you, on one hand you have someone who's like above average but not pro.
Yeah.
But everything in between, the meat and potatoes, is like so good that it's like a hard
S tier.
He's so good at that it almost makes up for the fact that he's like not gonna have a great. He might die off spawn in Warzone. Right. Yeah. So continue, please. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was like I said, I've been playing Splitgate since like 2018, 2019. It's been a big, it's like a passion game of mine. I love it to death. I know a lot of the developers. I've interviewed some of the developers. I've gamed with some of the developers, and I had done casting for them. And right when it was this summer, Splitgate was blowing up, and they were having a Splitgate tournament, like a pro. It was pro, but they were bringing in like large creators as well. And they were announcing some of the teams. Like the biggest of the biggest creators were playing in it. And Doc had a team. And I was thinking, like, man, like it would have been really cool to like be able to cast this tournament, like have all these big creators in it. But they had like high end like paid casters and stuff. So I don't remember what I was doing. I think I was editing a video, and like I just was like totally like dialed in on editing this video, and like so I wasn't checking my phone, I wasn't checking my Discord notifications. Long story short, the director of the game and the owner of 1047 Games, the developers of Splitgate, was calling me repeatedly on Discord for like half an hour.
No.
Yes, because somebody on Doc's team like no-showed, and they needed somebody to step in, and they're like, well, Mayor knows the game really well. Like he's been playing it for years. He's casted our tournaments. Like Doc, he can take the spot.
Fucking way.
So one of my friends, who's a developer, he's not the director, but I messaged him, and they didn't tell me this though. When I messaged him, I was like, "Hey man, what's up? I saw you guys were calling me." And he's like, "Oh no big deal. Somebody dropped out of the tournament, and we thought that you might be able to fill the spot, and we found somebody, no big deal." And I was like, "Oh, okay, no problem." I'd been playing Splitgate for a long time, so it was okay. And I was like, "Wait, it wasn't Doc's team, was it?" And I'm thinking, like, no way, no way. And he just types back just like the 3 periods. He didn't want to tell me because he knows that I love Doc. And I was like, "You're kidding, right?"
God.
And he's like, "No, man." He's like, You could have been playing with him right now." It's just like, for days I was like, "No, I can't."
That's one of those things that ruins everything. I mean, you go out and you're like, you can't even drink a water straight. You're like so fucking livid. I get that, man. That feels so bad, man. That feels awful to hear. It's funny in a hindsight kind of way. Like you're right. You're right. It's one of those things where like not everyone's going to be ready for a golden opportunity at any point in time. Sometimes you got to skip a few golden opportunities because life happens.
Hey, if it almost happened once, it might happen again.
Yeah, and who's to say that you won't get to a point where Doc would want to play with you? I mean, Z-Laner's a great opportunity, example of that.
Yeah, I mean,
Z-Laner was somebody who was just slightly up and coming, started playing with Doc, and really fleshed out his content to a point where, he's not a household name, but he's a gaming name. Most people in the gaming industry know that.
Yeah, he's getting there.
Yeah. Wow, we've hit, I told you that this is going to last about 2 hours, and we're just fucking approaching the 2 hour mark and just finished.
Hey, man. Keep it up. Keep it all night.
The questions. I mean, I'm willing to push it further. I won't set an
It's
arbitrary
up to you.
time
It's your show.
I won't set an arbitrary time limit. I just know that you're very routine to your schedule. So, like, I don't want to, add any.
All I have to do after this is maybe watch an episode of Attack on Titan before I go to bed. So.
Is it out?
I don't know. I have no. I'm not even totally caught up. So
earlier when I was at the birthday party that I told you about at the beginning, one of my friends had mentioned that it should be releasing today, but it wasn't out yet for some reason. And I remember telling him, like, if it comes out, we'll watch it. And so I was like, I did. It's so great. So I'm sad Demon Slayer ended, but it's one of those things where it's hard because there's not many animes that you're going to get weekly.
Yeah.
But I'm so into anime that I've destroyed my backlog. Like, my backlog's completely wiped to the point where I've started to read manga because I could not wait any further for like the continuation of stories. And I completely wiped out Demon Slayer. I completely wiped out My Hero Academia. I completely wiped out all of these mangas because I just couldn't stand to not know what happened next. And they were that enticing. So I kind of shot myself in the foot there, man. That's awesome that you watched Attack on Titan. Is there any... my last cast, Pixelated Owl, he's a giant anime fanatic. In fact, I appeared on his game show where we did an anime Jeopardy, which was really, really awesome, very creative and very cool.
I'm not gigantic anime person. I've probably watched like 5 animes like ever, maybe a few more, but Cowboy Bebop is my favorite of all time by far, by far and away.
It's hard because I don't like to rate those ones. I don't like to rate Cowboy Bebop. I don't like to rate Bleach. I don't like to rate them because they're a different era. It's like a legacy era that should not be like, because you like right now animation budgets are massive, animation technology is massive. What they're able to do now is night and day from what they were able to do then. So I don't like to compare them to modern day things that are amazing because it's like they paved a path for that.
Yeah, to me it was just, that was the anime that made me like okay with watching anime. And not only that, I had never watched an anime before that, and that was the very first one I ever watched. But I would think I was like 18, 19 at the time, and it had like a profound effect on me because it's just like the story of it, like the characters, like I really connected with it. And like as an adult, I've gone back and listened to like analyses of its story, about like what it's about and stuff, and like it's super mature. The storyline is it's almost about like being okay with being
not okay,
lonely, like basically, like and being lonely together with other people and like making the best of it. And it has a lot of just really mature themes that run throughout it, and I just the whole story of the whole thing just really connected with me at the time.
It's amazing, and for a very long time I watched a lot of it. I wouldn't say recently, a few years ago, but for a while it was one of those just Toonami, you catch an episode here and there, and it's like they go on an adventure and you catch just one, you don't get it, you know. So for a long time it was that, until I finally started diving into anime and I wanted to start attacking a lot of the old ones, you know. I mean, you have those ones like, you know, the old ones like Bleach, like Naruto, like Dragon Ball Z, that go way back, Inuyasha, Fooly Cooly, any of the Toonami ones you might recognize, that all have that old style, but we're telling deeper, more mature stories. And I think that's what people mistake about anime very often, is that they look at it like it's this childish thing, because they see like the girls with the cat ears doing this stuff or whatever. But then you have animes that are very visceral and real and earthy, and they talk about things that are like uncomfortable, and it's like a great way to put that content out there, because you're not using real people to introduce uncomfortable topics. I mean,
Attack on Titan is dancing around a lot of the same kind of storyline. It's like Game of Thrones. Like it's very
political. I didn't like the first half of the season for a while because I felt like it was all like just watching a political debate. But when you really look into the lore of it all and why they're doing it all, it's like it makes so much more sense. And they introduce it in such a way that it paces itself well. And whether you like it or not, the whole of the thing, when you like, if you were someone who never watched it and then you watch it all now, like now we're just getting the new episodes, right? So now the story's making sense. But if you're watching it in the future and you look back and you watch it all, it would all go so much more smoothly. And I think a lot of people who only got the politics lost interest in it, when it's like it was building up to something more. Like you needed more legs to get that story going, and I think they're doing that well. There's other ones too, like Rising of the Shield Hero, that introduces some very gross and visceral topics. You know, there was one thing in particular that was very difficult in Shield Hero, where they talked about, you know, basically the main character got accused of sexual assault when he didn't do it. And it was very like, it was weird because you expect to watch this anime and just get like, you know, people fighting with swords or whatever, and then you see this
kind of relaxing,
you see the politicism of this person in a kingdom, you know, when it's like kingdom and there's not like whatever now, and honor and respect, and he's getting like expelled from this kingdom for something he never did, that you kind of have like a, you know, like, that's something that you could talk about and like actually get into. Like
I tried to watch. I heard of Overlord for the first time, the anime Overlord, not the movie.
I still have not watched
movie's
that, but
great,
I've gotten nothing but
way,
recommendations about that. Shout out to Pixelated Owl.
So I heard that it's about this you know, this guy or whatever that gets caught in you know, in an MMORPG that's shutting down, and like like his character, like he stays in the game. So that's the basic concept. And like I'm like, oh, this is perfect for me. I'm gonna love this, you know, like there's gonna be so many like inside jokes and, you know, like things I'm gonna connect with. And I watched it for a few episodes, and like the I don't know why, but it's really common in anime, like the over sexualization of a lot of it.
That's often referred to as fan service, and it's very difficult. People like you and I are not good with that.
I could not. I was like, this is way too much. Like I can't. I couldn't do it.
It's one of those things that are like you have to take it in bite-sized bits. You can't just jump into the final like form of that. And Overlord, I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard it's very much like that. You know, there's shows there's shows that are very much fan service shows that are very difficult because they ruin the immersion of the story that they're trying to propagate.
Yes,
they're telling
exactly.
They're telling you this giant thing, and then
me.
There's titties in your face. You're like, all right, yeah.
Well, and just the way the characters interacted, it was just in a very like upfront, like it was like you said, it was breaking the immersion for me. I was just like,
One thing that I think is cool to mention about this, just because I've talked about it recently, was the fact that a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the way that the characters act and the way that it doesn't seem realistic is because it is very realistic in a lot of Japanese culture. Their respect systems and the way that they refer to each other.
Eastern and Western culture is much different.
It's so different. And a lot of people don't think about it, and they say it's unrealistic because, like, what girl would talk like that? A girl who is in a position where she needs to talk like that because she wouldn't have a say elsewise. And that's happened very often in Japan. You see it very often where there's a lot of, like, their work culture. The 996 is their work culture. You know, we have the 9 to 5. 996 is 9 to 9, 6 days a week. That's like their average. And it's a different work culture. And if you call in sick to work one day, if you're sick, they will fire you. They can fire you 100% on grounds and never question it because they don't have the same kind of rights as we do through our constitution and everything else. And when you start to realize how people are gripping onto that, you have to understand that a lot of those stories are written in a frame of the people who are in those cultures who have to still deal with that to appease the people above them in an honorific way that gives like an extended level of respect to be favored.
Even super basic stuff like saying san at the end of names. Like a lot of people don't understand that that's basically like equal to saying Mr. or Mrs. And when you hear how much they use that over there, that they're constantly referring to each other as, like Mr., Mrs., like super, like just the way they talk even and to interact with each other is different than we are accustomed to here.
San would be a little bit different because that refers to, san and chan would refer to a little bit more like you're intimate with the person. I studied Japanese, so it refers to being a bit more intimate with that person. Yeah. Which is why, like, when they say like, oh, like, Mayor-chan, like that means like I'm a friend of you and I'm giving you like a almost like a pet name almost. You know what I mean? Like if you call like someone Alyssa, like Allie or something like that, like that's a pet name. It's the same exact concept. There's the honorifics come kind of in a little bit of the pre structuring. So you have to like almost pre-structure like I'm talking to you as a respected person, blah blah blah. Like and then you go on just to make sure it's known. And I still think it's all weird. I don't think it's all right. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff about Japan that people don't know about that they like idolize. Like, for example, if you have tattoos, they'll treat you like a second-class citizen. They don't look at you like a normal person. You may not know that, but they won't let you into certain restaurants or just like going around certain shops if you have tattoos. Wow. Yeah, it's very frowned upon because of they related to the Yakuza. And they relate it to being someone who's violent and like disruptive, and so they won't even let you in, even if you're a foreigner. There's a lot of things about that. I mean, they're a very progressive culture. I love all of those Eastern cultures, and
it's just different.
It's so cool. It's so cool that it's different, you know?
Yeah.
Sake is a great way that I've had to explain that to people because it's a liquor that you can't compare it to anything. It's its own flavor.
Yeah.
And so it's like I tell them the same thing with the culture.
Can't speak to that one.
You can't compare it to anything else because it's its own distinction, you know? You wouldn't say garlic tastes like something else because garlic tastes like garlic.
Right.
So you wouldn't say the way that they act is weird because that's just the way that they are.
Right.
That's what everything works
different.
there. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's its own thing.
It's not up or down or left or right.
It's not for us to say it's right or wrong. It's their way of just going about anything. So.
Right.
I think that's so much more important. While I find a break in all of this, I really want to get this out there because I know a bit about it, but I also want to know a bit more further. And while I have you here for a moment, I would just love to know how you went into your mayorship and how that all came to be. I know you prefaced it earlier by saying you were just like, it's different, it's something that no one in my age is doing, so why not just do it?
Yeah.
But tell me a bit about the further story of that and how you decided, to go, how long it lasted, like what all happened, what did you change?
Yeah. So like the first time I ever ran for office, I was 21 and it happened almost on accident, I would say. So I had decided that I wanted to go back to school and focus on like government and politics. And that was always my plan, was I wanted to run for office. I never really had a lot of interest in like working for other people. I always wanted to work through the problems myself and, try, not saying that I'm perfect or that I would always get it right, but that's what I was interested in, was the actual like governing process. Not like, one of the whole things was when I first went to school for journalism, it's like you're sitting there and you're critiquing everybody else and you're reporting what not everybody else is doing. But then I got to the point of like, well, instead of critiquing other people, why don't I try to like get in the arena and take a few swings? Like that kind of thing. So I started working on a bunch of political campaigns when I was 20, 21, and like the chairman of I'm a member of the Democratic Party, of our county's Democratic Party, which it doesn't matter what party you're in, you could follow the same path no matter what, like recognized like the organizational work that I was doing and could see that I was working like really hard. And he's like, hey, like we have no candidate to run for this office that you've probably never heard of. Do you want to do it? Yes or no? Like it was pretty much like just like that. Like,
wow. Oh my God. Like, that's a lot of
yeah. And I was like, yeah, like that's pretty much like how it happened. Because I knew it was something I always wanted to do. Like I just didn't think the opportunity was going to come that soon. So then I was like, I remember asking him, I said, yeah. And he's like, okay, great. And I'm like, what does that guy do? Like, what does that office, does that person do? Like, I didn't even know. So then we talked about it and I got super invested in it, learning like, it was county legislator was what it was. So learning like the business of the county legislature and all that stuff. And I ran and I lost like really bad, like, which you usually do the first time you run, especially if you're a 21-year-old.
Well, you say that, but not many people have ever run. So it's like, it's one of those things that's like,
well, think about it this way. I live in a rural area, and most offices, the people that are in office are entrenched in office. They've been in there for 10, 20 years. It's just the same people over and over again. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden here comes a 21-year-old kid nobody's ever heard of. Yeah, I mean, what does this kid know? He doesn't have a house. He doesn't pay taxes, just this. You hear those same stereotypical things you would expect. So I lost my first 2 times. And then I made a lot of connections, met a lot of people, talked about my ideas, worked really hard. And then eventually somebody on the village board where I lived resigned. The mayor at that time was like, hey, like, I see you walking up and down the streets these last 2 years, knocking on people's doors and talking to them. Like, are you interested? And I was like, yeah. So, he appointed me to the village board, and then he retired, and then another mayor after him 2 years later retired, and I had been right there every step of the way on the village board, learning all the business and voting on it and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, I want to run for mayor, and the thing is, I think a lot of people, though, you don't understand how few people there are that are actually willing to do something like that. Yeah. Like you think like, oh, I'm not qualified. It's like imposter syndrome, like I'm not qualified. What do I know? And then you realize like, well, I know just as much as everybody else does, and my opinions are as good or as bad as everybody else's. Like you just got to work hard and you got to take it serious. And I ran and I won by 8 votes the first time I won. I won by 8 votes.
That's crazy.
So if you're sitting there thinking your vote doesn't count, it does. Every vote literally does count. So overall, I served in office for 9 years, 5 of which were as mayor. And I focused a lot just on basic stuff like modernization, on promoting our community, trying to win grants and different funding opportunities for the community, beautification, upgraded our street lights to LEDs,
Animal Crossing money. IRL.
yeah.
That's
but
crazy.
One thing I was known for was definitely prominent use of social media. Like most local elected officials, when I started out, were not using giving community updates on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. Now it's common, but
even now it's still, well, I think it's even still a bit rare. I mean, for people to be
with
comfortable
local people,
doing it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, every congressman and congresswoman have paid staff that do it for them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Local levels, it's a little harder to find
that
personal
incredible
connection and stuff.
I want to ask a follow-up question on this because I actually have a unique perspective in this, in that I was an environmental science major for a very long time.
Okay.
So I actually dealt hand in hand with people in my area. And, I try not to be too specific about where I live, just for obviously safety reasons online, but in the general Niagara Falls area, right? And we did a lot of environmental work. And so I spoke to the mayor of my city very often. Mm-hmm. Him and I were very in touch, which was weird to me as somebody who was in high school, who was going through things, early college, but we were in touch about so many different programs and events that we wanted to run, and his take and everything. So is there a weirdness when you're a mayor? I mean, maybe it's a bit different between when it's rural or when it's in like a very public area with a lot of different people, where there's pressures that you maybe didn't expect would come out of something like that, different things that you were like not prepared to handle that you didn't even realize were an issue?
Oh, for sure. And that's the thing, like, you can never be 100% prepared for anything, right? Like, you run for office thinking this is what I'm going to do, X, Y, and Z. And then the times change, right? Like, you didn't run for office thinking, okay, I'm going to be dealing with COVID-19. I'm going to be dealing with a pandemic, like one of the things that I thought of that I always laugh about was like, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's one of the things that I'm most proud of and nobody probably even cares about. But we had like a historic snowstorm. I think it was like 2017 or 2018. And like, if you had told me that if you had told 15-year-old me that, hey, you're going to be in charge of cleaning up your entire village of a snowstorm, of getting 5 feet of snow off the roads, but just trying to find the resources to deal with something like that, because we're just a small village. We don't have like dozens of plow trucks and dozens of DPW workers, and like nobody had enough to deal with it. And like I was able to I was calling everywhere, like trying to find anything that I could do. Like what are we gonna do? How are we gonna fix this? How are we gonna take care of this? And we had the whole thing cleaned up in like 3 days. And like the larger cities around us were still like struggling to get the pieces in place. And I'm just like, I'm not putting them down or anything, but I was just
because with that scale, it's harder to get.
We did a really good job. Like we really did a really good job. This isn't something that there's like a playbook for.
No, you just kind of have to wing it. I mean, I can imagine.
And there's a ton of things like that. Like you just whatever happens, I mean, is what you end up dealing with. Like a lot of the things is just responding to people's individual people's requests, that might only affect 1 or 2 people. Like the sidewalk in front of my house is messed up. Like, what are you gonna do to fix it? And you got to find a way, like in the budget, or find time in your DPW guys' schedule to go down there and pour concrete or whatever. And if you do that, if you take care of people, at the end of the day, that's what they care about. It's not like the big things that are in the news all the time so much as like, hey, I needed something and my local government came through for me.
I've heard it referred to before as whack-a-mole. Would you say it's kind of like that, in the sense of like a problem emerges and it's like, can you get to it in time before it becomes a problem?
I've never heard that analogy, but that's very good. Yeah, it's balancing lots of plates at one time, constantly. I mean,
I can't imagine that amount of pressure. I have a dog, and sometimes I'm like, God damn, this is a lot of responsibility, and I just can't even imagine like having to, account yourself or be accountable, even if you're not directly accountable, but just be accountable for everything that goes on, even if you have no direct connection to it whatsoever.
I still think about that sometimes, because like I'll be doing something now that I'm like, retired. I'm not in office right now. And I'll be like stressed out about it. I'll be like, man, like I had a budget that was like, like we dealt with like millions of dollars, and like I handled that, like what's my problem? Like, why am I so upset right now? This is seemingly not as I had millions of dollars of other people's money like on my shoulders, and then now I'm stressing about like, whatever it is.
Look, I think the scope and scale of things is a giant thing. I think that people don't understand that your big problem and someone else's big problem might be totally different things, but to each of you, the way you interpret it is
that's true.
Massive, to a mayor, dealing with the budget might be massive, to somebody who maybe has mental health issues, just tying their shoes might be just as massive equally as a mayor did with $1 million budget, just because it's how they take it, how they feel it. And you can't feel someone else's anxiety or pains. And that's the hard part about taking a role like that, is you're kind of, even if you don't have to, people are still going to point the finger. Even if that's not your job or responsibility, people are still going to look to you for an answer.
At the most basic level, I think the best thing that you can do, and this applies to like solving all situations really, is just always give people the benefit of the doubt and take what they're saying to you seriously, because if they're taking the time to tell you, then it's important to them, and you can give them that same respect. You know, like it may not be like the biggest thing on your plate, but if you can like hear them out and then like address their problem, you know, with sincerity, even if the answer is, I can't really help you, I'm sorry, but I understand what you're telling me, and if there is something that I can do, I will follow up. To tell
someone your problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have that embarrassment. Even in a restaurant, you don't want to tell the waiter that your food's messed up, you know?
Right.
So to be able to go to someone and actually tell them, like, hey, this is really bothering us, can you fix it? That has to take some level of, like, vulnerability, where it's like they're expecting at least something.
Because you know you're causing a problem for them, and they got to go back and cook a new steak or whatever, you know?
Exactly,
Yeah. I mean, any problem in life.
That's hard. Now, when you were in that position, did you meet other people who you were kind of like, maybe, I wouldn't say, I don't know if intimidated is the right word, but who you sized yourself up compared to and thought maybe like, oh, you know, like maybe other mayors, maybe governors, maybe anything?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I met a lot of people of all types. I met governors, I met U.S. senators, congressmen, congresswomen, assemblymen, assemblywomen, the whole shebang. I often found that I related the best to other mayors, and they related the best to me, because we dealt with a lot of the exact same problems. And there's kind of like a shared experience there, you know. Because
I'm just picturing a scenario in my head where you're like, hey, bro, man, that fucking snowstorm, these guys are bitching at me.
It's true, though. It's true, though. Like, the only difference was, I remember being at this meeting one time. It was all the, we had to do, like, continued education, right? Like, a lot of places. We had to go do, like, you know, you have to get so many credits per year. You had to attend these seminars. And I remember going to this one, and, like, every freaking elected official in my county was there. And I looked around the room, and it was, like, literally, there's like 100 white guys with white hair, like sitting in the room. there was me, who was like 27, and then there was like one woman in there. And I was like, look at this room, and which two of us don't fit in? You know, like everybody else is like, and there's nothing wrong. A lot of them are good guys. You know, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with them. Yeah, I met a ton of people, and a lot of them were great, and like some of them were not so great. I mean, there's definitely people who, I think something that I learned, and that a lot of people don't realize about politics, like when you think about it, you've probably got this, like, you know, everybody's playing chess in their head, right? Like the Democratic Party is doing all this, and the Republican Party is doing all this, and they've got these grand plans.
Is so fucking exhausting.
Everybody thinks it's like this big machine, you know, and there's so much going on behind the scenes. And the reality of it is that it's just people that are having the same problems as normal people have. Like, I can't figure out how to work with this guy, and I really hate him, and we can't make it work, and it drives me insane. Or you know, these two people work really well together, and that's why they get a lot done. And like, this guy doesn't want you to achieve that, because, you know, he's jealous of you because you
oh my God, I can't imagine, like, he said, she said in a fucking political room.
That's what I mean. Like,
that's
all
crazy.
those types of all those human problems that you have at your workplace or in your family or whatever, they all are in politics. It's not this like, oh my God, like,
you're a mayor, especially in these trying times. I mean,
yeah, it's a lot more grounded than you would expect.
You kind of hope that the people have like some, you know, maybe, I don't even know, some bone in their body that allows them to put all that shit aside.
Well, some of them do.
To deal with the problem at hand.
Some people do, right.
Because, well, that's also, they put on this front, you know, because you know them behind the scenes. You've seen them behind the scenes. But they get in these campaign ads and they say, like, for the city, I plan on fixing this. Other competitors are not doing this. And then you meet them behind the scenes and they're talking shit about their garbage man or so, it's weird because you almost don't want the politicians to do that. You want them to just be this like figure person. But the reality is, one of them is streaming on Twitch.
They're normal people. Yeah.
They're just doing their own thing.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, it's just so funny. I remember I went to the Democratic National Convention in 2012, I think. And like it's just such a weird experience. Like I was standing in line at Subway, so like all the elected officials in that party are there, and I'm there among them. I'm standing in line at Subway, and there's a U.S. senator like in line in front of me. The dude's like just ordering his sub, like, yeah, I'll take that with pickles, but don't put any sub sauce on it. I don't like that. And it's just such a weird experience. It really is.
I can't imagine. I mean, I would imagine a lot of it is just like everything else, where it's like tenure, opportunistic, and like things like that are what drives you further. Because I'm sure you probably could have went from mayor to another position higher and like continue to climb the ladder, but you probably got out for the best reasons I can imagine.
I mean, I still can, right? That's the thing. You talk about opportunities in any field; they're never gone. Like we fret about missed opportunities. Like I could run for office tomorrow if I wanted to. That's the beauty of it, is that anybody can do it at any point. And I got asked to run for statewide office several times, and I got close. I got really close the one year. I started fundraising and everything. And it was going really well, but it was also the year that my wife and I were getting married, and it was just way too much. I was working full time. I was being there. I was planning a wedding, and I was like, there's a piece here that doesn't fit. Like, I can't
as someone who's been in a long-term relationship, wedding has to come first, or else. I mean, that or else you never want to find out. See, that wedding happens, or else, and you don't want to find out, or else.
Right. Like you said,
the entirety of a state versus your wife's anger. Your wife's anger is going to trump that by a mile. There's not even a competition.
Like you said too, like you got to pay the bills. So it's like, okay, my wedding and my wife's important. My main job is important. I got to pay my mortgage, and I am elected as a mayor. Like that's my job. Like I am elected already. So like I got to focus on that too. So it's like this other thing, like as interesting as it sounds, like I can't commit to trying to add a whole nother thing on top of it. You got to know your limits too. That's important.
Yeah. Well, also not reaching, above and beyond your own expectations. You mentioned limits, but also it's expectations, because if you were to take that on, how much does that subtract from what you already do on a daily basis, right?
Right. That's
because
what I mean.
Maybe mayor's this much, but maybe something else is this much, and now you have to start negotiating with your daily life. And sometimes negotiating with your daily life, you just can't do it. It's impossible. You have to make so many sacrifices that are so unfair. And I'm somebody who tries to be very fair in my relationship. If you do the dishes one day, I'll do them the next. When you do the dishes 2 days in a row, now I feel like an asshole. I probably should have done them. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I can't imagine adding more to what I have right now, because I work, I pay my bills, I stream, I do my chores. If I had to add anything else in there, even sometimes I think about just like, if I cut the gym out and just got skinny and just do whatever, just stop going to the gym, but I can't do that for myself. That's too important.
I know what you mean.
It's too important to my mental.
I have really tried hard to work, even leaving time like once or twice a week to like watch like a movie or an episode of a TV show into my schedule. Like over like the last 6 months, I've really been trying hard to give myself that, like, okay, before I go to bed on Sunday nights, I will watch an episode of a television show. Like I had to work that time in.
Yeah. Well, it's also one of those things when you have overachieving people. They want to do more. They always want like a little bit more into their already busy schedule, because they have so many ideas flourishing. I've met so many people who are so stagnant, and nothing against them, but some people's dream life is to work, come home, watch TV for 4 hours, and then go to sleep.
Right.
And I can't. Any second that I have that I'm doing anything, I try to improve that. If I come home and my next thing is to cook dinner, how can I cook dinner better? Let's look at recipes. Let's go into it. Let's do it. If I'm doing the dishes, can I do this more efficiently? Can I, if I'm
toxic productivity?
Exactly. I've never heard that term, toxic productivity.
I just made it up just now.
I love it. Toxic productivity. It's one of those things where you're so efficient that you stop yourself from being efficient.
I do it. I do it. When I wake up in the morning before work, I'm sitting there doing stuff with my stream from the night before. Like I'm either making a short or, you know, editing this or that at 6 a.m. before I go to work. That's what I'm doing. I'm like, I got 20 minutes before I need to get in the shower while I eat this cereal, you know, and I can do something in this time.
It's funny you mentioned that. Well, you know, I mentioned earlier my ADHD, and it's very often that people take that as something that is like a detraction. But very often it's a propulsion. I'm very into using it as a tool to do things more. But also it leads to me sometimes being so ahead of things that I get behind. This podcast is an example. You might notice that my script paper that I normally have is very crinkled. And that's because I went through a hyperfixation cleaning of my desk area the other day. I did everything, lifted up each of my monitors, dusted everything, cleaned everything. On top of that, that was a day that I had to do some oil changes. I had to do a whole bunch of shit for our cars, everything. And it gets so crazy that this piece of paper, which would normally be like a golden arc, I literally crumpled and threw in my closet and didn't even think of it in the sense of like the rapidness of everything until now, where it's like I need that and I have to go ahead and try to retrieve that from everything. It's so hard to try to be on top of everything. I don't think anyone can. I mean, scheduled as you might be,
it's a never-ending battle.
It is. Oh my God, it is. It is. But it's also a never-ending battle when you're creative too, because I think creativity adds an additional layer that most people. I shouldn't say most people. A lot of people are creative, but not all people has an outlet to do it. Not everyone has a way to put it to be able to put their own creativity onto something to manifest it and to present to people.
Yes, and it's an amazing thing and it's a burden at the same time. Like it's so, you know, like, you know, creativity comes in many forms. You know, you can be musically talented, artistically talented. You could be, you know, there's a million different ways. And it can drive you crazy. Just as, I mean, think of all the, you know, genius artists throughout history that had like major. I mean, again, I'll mention Kanye West. You know,
please
like
do.
Third time.
He's the best producer in the world.
Van Gogh, dude, amazing influential painter, cut off his own ear. You know, like it. Just sometimes there's just it is so much. Your brain waves are working at such a level that somebody just. Something else isn't clicking the way it's supposed to, you know?
I look at people like Elon Musk and I just can't imagine how somebody can take on what he takes on.
Yeah.
I think he's alien because to do Tesla solar roof, you know, in my city, we have a Tesla manufacturing site. They do the solar roof, they do the power wall, to do the space program, the tunneling program, to do Neuralink, to do everything that he does. I can't imagine somebody taking on so many big ticket projects. Just being a percentage of one of those projects seems exhausting enough.
Yeah.
So to be a runner of one of them seems so exhausting, and then to do that for 7 in a row, like.
Yeah.
I'm glad people like that exist, but I also think that it's something that's so unmanageable that I'm glad that there's one of him.
It is, and I think too, some of those things you almost end up becoming a symbolic leader, though. Like, you know, like I think I saw Jeff Bezos say one time that, like, you know, like people think, like they asked him, like, how many decisions do you make on a daily basis? And he's like, no, you don't understand. Like when you're at my level, you make like 2 to 3 massive decisions like a year. Like that's your job is to make like decisions that nobody else can make. Like, but you got to get these 3 right. You know, that's like that's it. And you know, a lot of those people too. I mean, you've probably heard of this. What do they call it? What's the word from it? It's like decision. I can't remember if it's like decision fatigue or something. So they have people who are in charge of their wardrobe, not because they are privileged, but because they literally, I mean, it is a privilege, but because like they need to remove the decision of deciding what to wear today and what to eat today and all that. Like they need to offload it off their brain.
I've never heard that, but I resonate with that very well because I get it. Because there are times, you know, even on a micro scale with me and Liv, I end up being the decision maker majority of the time because it's just easier than to play the back and forth game of this, that, pros, cons, whatever. Even if something is going out to get food. Like I have to just be like, all right, we're going here. Because if I don't, it's going to be 2 hours of like, well, I like they're this, but I don't like they're that. And it's that. And I can imagine being on such a massive scale, why that would be so exhausting and why you would want somebody to then take that role.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that a lot. And I also think that's why a lot of people, I mean, I've heard people say too that, you know, like, oh, you wear the same thing every day. Well, It's just because I don't want to give the time to, like I'll just wear a white dress shirt every day because it just removes all the other. I don't have to worry about anything else. It looks great and it does its job, and I'm out.
It's a pre-made decision. Yeah, I love that. I do a lot of pre-made decisions. I try to make sure that I have as much of my life made as pre-made decisions because I love spontaneousness, but I hate the spontaneity of having to make a decision on the fly.
Yeah.
It's so much easier when you can prepare a decision to be made in advance where you don't have to be worried about it. That's why even as simple as something as simple as meal prepping. Like the decision's made. I don't have to worry about what's for dinner because I already thought about that.
Right.
And I made the dinner. So I just have to put it in the microwave and call it a day. It's done.
Yeah.
It's done.
It's a wonderful thing.
That's awesome, man. Look, Mayor, I never have extended this to a guest that I've had on my podcast before, but I need to do this again and maybe come to yours.
Sure.
Whatever we have to do. We're hitting the 2.5 hour mark. My wife just called me, so I'm assuming I have a few responsibilities ahead of me.
Even on the flip phone.
But I could have this conversation for 10 hours. I could continue to go because I feel like there's so much more to this. But I just think that we have to bring this to a close. But I want to say thank you first and foremost for coming on so much.
You're welcome. It's fun.
For everyone in chat.
I love talking to you. For the very first time we played Apex together, man, we had a thing. Yeah.
It hit and it made sense.
I knew I liked you originally.
Absolutely, and I feel the same way for you, and I don't just like you, but I also enjoy your content and your spin because it's so very unique and it's so different and it's what people are doing, but it's in a way that you're doing it that is a step above or cut different. That is so, and I feel like I enjoy doing these podcasts more with people who I consider very much peers, people who might be slightly above or slightly below, or even I'd consider you slightly above in the sense that you've hashed out what you want to do and you're doing it and it's coming out phenomenal. Everything that you do is coming out great. I still am in the bucket of trying to figure out where my niche is, but also just having fun in the process. And I think that it's so great to see other people who are in that same plateau succeeding. And I think
you're not giving yourself enough credit.
Well, I think that if you knew me, you'd understand.
I think what you do is awesome.
I
love your content.
I'm never going to be happy enough with myself. And I think that's...
I'm the same way. That's the thing.
Exactly,
See, I always say this about... I know we're trying to end, but I always say this about the big creators, too. It's like, we think they got it all figured out, and, they're sitting there asking themselves the same thing. Is this what I want to do? Is this the right thing to do?
Being content is your demise. You have to always feel like you're the worst because that's going to make you the best. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mayor, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it. This is going to be the end of it all.
You're welcome, sir.
Everyone in chat, thank you guys. No, I'm so sorry. I would feel like I did a disservice if I did not say this, but somebody in chat did mention earlier something. They said in the news there was something about your Reddit AMA. You did a Reddit AMA?
Yeah, I did 2 of them.
2 of them? Okay. As a mayor or as a content creator?
The first one was as a mayor. That one was the one that went absolutely viral and made the front page of Reddit. Mostly because people thought, so I didn't say this yet, my actual name is Ryan Reynolds, okay? Some people know that, some people don't.
Holy shit.
So I did an AMA on Reddit, and it was like, I am Ryan Reynolds, the mayor of Whitney Point, New York, AMA. And like 70% of the comments thought I was like Deadpool, and they're like asking me questions about being Ryan Reynolds. And it made the front page of Reddit, and it made like the Daily Guardian or whatever that website is.
That has to be so frustrating to share a name with somebody famous. Like,
oh, I get jokes every single day.
Well, especially because that's not your niche, right? Like what he does and what you do is totally different. And to try to break out of that, like you had to come up with MayorReynolds because if you had gone with a name like Ryan Reynolds, you could never do it.
If you Googled Ryan Reynolds as a content creator, like you would never get any result that related to me ever. So yeah, I did have an AMA, and I answered it for questions for 6 hours, and it was crazy.
That's incredible. That's wow.
Next time I'll tell you about the alligator story. I have an alligator story for you.
I want to hear it, and you know what? We'll absolutely have to plan another time to do this to come back to that. This time we can skip the 5 questions because I think the next one's not going to even. I think we have too much to talk about. I think you're one of those people, and also I will announce that I am actually going to do the PAX East with you.
Oh, sweet! Nice.
I absolutely am. Me and Liv talked about it very voraciously because we're doing a couple of trips soon.
Is your wife coming too? Or
yes, she'll be coming.
Because my wife's coming too. So
oh, that'd be great. That'd be perfect.
Yeah.
The dinner date, everything. Yeah, she actually wants to stay though a few more days. She wants to stay not for PAX, but just for Cleveland.
Yeah.
So she wants to or
Boston.
not Boston. Sorry, Cleveland's our.
I'll go to Cleveland.
We're going to a concert soon for Cleveland, so that's a little bit different. But thank you so much for being here, man. I appreciate it. I hope that you have a phenomenal rest of your day, and I hope everyone was able to learn something from everything that we put forward today. With that being said, it's been a pleasure, and have a great rest of your night.
You too.
Take care.
See you, everybody.